goes to Mitch, so we're official.
You're recording.
But they can't see that's.
Yes, and everybody, we're recording, so we're capturing what you're saying. And I'd like to start the meeting by introducing, DOT is going to talk to us, and Mrs. Nick is going to talk to us about bike recommendation.
All right, thank
Floor
you.
is yours.
You want to just advance for you, or
I can do it. Thanks, Phil.
swipe?
Swipe. Ah, like that?
Like that.
Not bad. Hello, everybody. My name is Nick Carey. I'm the lead engineer at the bicycle unit of the New York City Department of Transportation. Thank you for having me. Relatively short presentation. I guess I should stand out of the way. So first, yeah, you can swipe. Thank you. So first, we're going to do a brief overview of what we're looking to do, and then we'll get into the nitty-gritty details of how it works. The two big things we're trying to do here are, one, remember those buffered bike lanes we installed like 6-7 years ago on Church and 6th and Varick and West Broadway? We want to upgrade those to protected bike lanes. And we want to extend them down to Barclay Street. Currently, those bike lanes end at Warren. We want to extend to Barclay Street.
Can I be really stupid? And can you just explain what a buffered versus protected means?
We'll get all into it.
Okay.
We'll get into the.
I'm sure everybody knows what it is but me, because I'm new.
No worries, I'll explain everything. So the second thing we want to do is install some conventional bike lanes on Murray Street, Park Place, and Barclay Street to improve connections for cyclists between the Brooklyn Bridge, World Trade Center, the Hudson River Greenway, and the planned protected bike lane on Broadway, south of Barclay Street. So we presented that last year, and we hope to install in the spring. So this would connect all of those. All right, so first let's talk about the protected bike lanes. So on Church Street, 6th Avenue, Varick Street, and West Broadway. So this is Church Street and 6th Avenue. This is the Church Street cross-section. This is 6th Avenue, existing on the top, proposed on the bottom. So basically, today, there are buffered bike lanes on 6th Avenue and on Church Street. This is between Barclay and Walker. So there's 3 travel lanes. There's parking on either side of the street, and there's a buffered bike lane.
That's not true on Church, right around, because they're doing construction there now. There's a bike lane, but it can't be used because of the construction, but it's not buffered, like right around Reed, Duane, like north of Chambers.
That's true. So the funny thing about the buffered bike lane on Church Street is that it's between the buses and the bus stops. So the buses have to pull across the bike lane to get to the bus stop, and they have to pull back out. So when there's a bus stop, we use different markings there, which have shared lane markings and some dash
It's not
line.
real buffered because the bikes are going every which way, and it's impossible for them for the next many months because of the construction. That's just an impossibility. So what you're saying makes sense in theory, but in reality it's not able to happen.
Right. This doesn't include all the construction happening throughout the corridor, which is a difficult thing, and I can't necessarily address in this, but we will have to work around that, obviously. So again, the bike lane is between the buses and the bus stops. Proposal is to move the bike lane to the west curb
Makes sense.
so that the buses aren't weaving across
Makes
it.
sense.
And we want to separate the bike lane from moving traffic by a floating lane of parked cars. So parked cars would form a buffer, physical barrier between the bike lane and the moving lane, and we want to install painted pedestrian islands that shorten the crossing distance and improve safety.
So buffer is a raised thing.
So a buffer is just this little painted buffer. You know, when you're
Buffer is not
It's a
raised.
double parking lane as opposed to a protected lane.
right.
Okay.
So there's a 9-foot parking lane, right, and then there's the bike lane, and then there's this little painted buffer, 3 feet wide, white stripes,
White stripes, but nothing raised.
nothing raised, right.
Okay. White
And so-
stripes, nothing raised. That's the kind of definition I need, sorry.
No worries. Now, in order to do this, we would need to repurpose an average of 2 parking spots per block to mitigate the issues around vehicles turning. Basically, when a vehicle turns across the bike lane, we need to clear a little space so that they can see the bikes. So that's the basic proposal for this section on Church and 6th between Barclay and Walker Street. Now, the last block that's part of our project scope is a weird one. We're talking about 6th Avenue between Walker and Lispenard. This is next to Tribeca Park. So this block is weird for a few reasons. One, it's much more narrow than the adjacent blocks on 6th Avenue. The street really narrows down. Second thing that's weird here is that it has 4 travel lanes instead of 3. Every other block on 6th Avenue, the adjacent blocks I should say, have 3 lanes, and this one has 4, which is a little strange. And it doesn't have a buffered bike lane. Currently, it has a shared lane marking, so bikes and cars have to share the lane for that street. So our proposal is to take it down to 3 lanes, so it's consistent with the adjacent blocks on 6th Avenue, and to install a buffered bike lane up to the end. Now, we're proposing to end the northbound part of the protected bike lane here at the 6th Avenue, West Broadway, Lispenard intersection, which might sound a little strange. Let me explain why. The original bike lane, if you guys remember from 7 years ago, was a bike lane that went up the right side of 6th Avenue. And then the way we routed things at the time was that you would turn a slight right onto West Broadway. That's the two-way part of West Broadway. And there are shared lane markings that would take you up to Washington Square Park. Now there is an existing protected bike lane on 6th Avenue starting at 8th Street in the Village. And we are definitely interested in extending this proposed Tribeca Church Street 6th Avenue protected bike lane to the existing protected bike lane on 6th
When you say
Avenue.
we, your group or the city government?
Yeah, DOT.
Okay, as opposed to like transportation alternatives or something like that.
Right. So what I'm trying to say is that we definitely are interested in extending it north to make that connection. But what you guys haven't seen yet is that this project has an enormous scope. There's a lot of streets we're talking about, a lot of things that would need to be done. So for now, we're proposing to end the protected bike lane here because there's a connecting bicycle route, so it makes sense. Now, what's a little awkward is that the existing bike lane is on the right side of the street and you turn right onto West Broadway. And under our proposal, you'd be on the left side of the street and you'd have to turn right. So we showed this diagram just to explain that there's going to be a few different ways that cyclists will be able to transition across from the left side to the right side. And I can get more into that in the questions if you guys want to talk about it, but just know that we are definitely interested in extending the protected bike lane further up 6th Avenue. It's just the next step. Okay, so the southbound, let's talk about Varick Street. Varick is a little unusual, the width changes a little bit. There's 2 travel lanes, parking on both sides, a buffered bike lane for the most part. The angled parking on one side is a little strange. Part of it is 60-degree back-end parking, and then in front of the police precinct, there's 90-degree parking. There's a turn. It varies a little bit. But basically, what we want to do is flip the buffered bike lane and the parking lane. So similar to what you saw, what we're proposing for Church Street and 6th Avenue, a parking protected lane with painted pedestrian islands. Now, the only unusual block here within our project scope is this block between Lake Street and Beach Street. That's the really long block next to the Holland Tunnel exit. So that block is 3 lanes. It's 2 travel lanes and a really long left turn lane onto Beach Street. We did extensive observations and a formal traffic analysis and determined that this left turn lane does not need to be 800 feet long or whatever it is. So we're proposing to take it down again to 2 lanes, similar to the rest of Varick Street to the south, with a parking protected bike lane and painted pedestrian islands, and we would retain a short bit of this turn lane at the end because there is a little bit of queuing space we need there.
I'm sorry, can I just ask you a question? What, are you talking about Erickson Place? Or are you talking about Beach Street, the left turn?
Well,
It's on Varick?
on Varick, yeah. So is that called? So I'll actually
Yeah,
ask you
and
guys
that's where
this.
the police precinct is,
Right.
right? And there were always police cars just, have you noticed this? There are always police cars just parked on the curb there. You should take a look, because it'll be hard for bikes to make a left turn on there.
Left turn onto
From,
onto
onto
Beach
Eric-
Street.
which
I
is
see what you're
Erickson
saying.
Place in that weird location,
Yeah, you're proposing that the bike lane be on the south side of Erickson Place between,
No, on the east side of Varick Street.
what are you proposing on Erickson Place?
Nothing.
So it's a right turn onto, I'm sorry.
So it's I don't know. It's a little
The
Okay,
different.
angled
I'm
parking you're
confused, yeah,
talking about
okay.
is angled parking that backs up into the,
Turn for the bikes.
So the angle
into the
park
rotary,
Exactly.
Oh,
this is the angle
okay.
parking adjacent, and this is
into the rotary, backing,
Oh, I see.
To the
backing
Holland
west
Tunnel.
into the rotary.
exactly.
area.
Right, okay.
Also, as Varick goes into West Broadway, the same problem that you had on Church with the construction on the east side, this crazy construction, it's impossible, I don't know how many years it's going to go on, I mean, I wish it wasn't, but there's no way that can be implemented safely because of that construction. I'm not for or against it, but I'm just saying factually,
Right.
for the people that are not aware of it. That's the same problem that you had when you want to move it to the west side.
Which construction?
I'm telling you, there's construction on the east side of West Broadway, like as you, come close towards Street, like as you're coming from Barrett
Street,
into West
yep.
Broadway. That's,
Yeah, so the War Street intersection,
it's just, there's different types of construction at different times, but it really gets out far, and sometimes where there's only one lane, and then it kind of opens up again as you get closer to Chambers, leaving Chambers.
Right.
Just to let people know, it's just really, it's nothing the plans are great on paper, but these other things,
Right, and the blocks that are totally under construction, obviously, we're not going to be able to install this
Right.
until those are done.
so you're gonna have, and, I worry about the safety of everybody, bikes are gonna have to go from there, like this, it's some kind of a joke, they do that anyway, but that they're
Right.
gonna have to for safety because of that situation.
Right, we'll have to design an interim solution in the meantime.
That's impossible. There's they have to go from here to here to here, because it's just, for anybody familiar with that, there's heavy construction that's been there for a long time. So, just as for safety.
Okay,
When you
Good to
say
know.
protected, by the way, are there barriers of any kind that will keep those bike lanes completely free from what we all know is the double parking and the drop-offs that happen in there anyway?
in this case, it'll be parked cars. So some of our bike lanes are protected by parked cars,
Right.
similar to what you see in like a First and Second Avenue. Sometimes we use bollards or barriers, but in this case, we want to use,
But what about even those, like City Bike uses those, I don't know what they're called, those.
flexible delineators.
Those are awful. Those are just awful.
Well, at least they keep social parking spaces open. What I often see is, a box truck will pull in there, take the parking space and half the bike lane.
Right.
For example.
We've had much better luck with this design where when people, there's always a learning curve for people who have to learn to park in the floating parking lane, but once they get it, we've had pretty good success at people staying out of the bike lane.
You're not eliminating any through traffic lanes.
Only on this block between Late and Beach Street, where it's a really long left turn lane.
Now,
Not a through, not a through lane.
you
Right,
should
not a through
rethink that. I live right over there. There is queuing there, particularly when in the rush hour time when 6th Avenue is used to get into the tunnel. So it does queue from 6th Avenue around to Beach and all the way to Barrack. You should really, and I think we should comment on this, rethink about shortening that queuing. Because if you short that queuing will just back up into the middle lane, or both sides into the middle lane. So you'll have the queuing for the shortened left turn and queuing in your middle lane to
So
get to 6th Avenue.
This is the queuing for people exiting the tunnel, getting onto Beach Street
No, not so early, just traveling south
on Varick.
just traveling south on Barrack. You travel south on Barrack, you make that left on Beach, and during rush hour, 6th Avenue, that intersection down there, where, it splits because of the park, but there's a lot of gridlock there, which causes several cycles of traffic lights where
Yeah.
cars do not even move, and then it continues to queue. So I really think I don't know the reason why you want to shorten that. What's the thinking behind that? Just because you might have observed a certain period of time that it's not queuing, but I can tell you at rush hour it's a problem, and there's really no reason to. We should really rethink that. Not shorten that queuing for the left turn. Believe me, I've observed this for decades.
It's particularly severe during the morning rush hour.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Well, I will say that we spent some time out there. We did hang cameras and spent some time out there ourselves. We collected a lot of traffic data. We built a full traffic model of the whole project corridor, all the different streets, and looked at how we could make some adjustments to signal timings and sort of flush out some of the turns. There are a few things we're proposing. We haven't really gotten into in the presentation, but like some timing changes at, for example, Varick and Franklin to help flush out that left turn. It gets kind of heavy.
Yeah, it's all over, even Greenwich, I can talk to you about that later, but this particular area, I know sometimes, you do these studies and whatnot, and you do everything, but sometimes you just need to take the word of the people that live there and see it all the time.
Right.
You know?
Well, we also have to balance that with some of the benefits we're proposing here. Not only safer for cyclists, but also a lot safer for pedestrians to have a narrower street with less speeding vehicles and shorter crossing distance. But you definitely make a good point. It's a balancing act where we have to think about all the different modes and all the people using these streets.
Yeah, I mean, Can we comment on that? That's, I mean, even another person
Can we
commented
move
on it.
on?
So,
Right.
and
I know
last
we
thing
can move
about,
on, but I wanna be sure, what are we doing here? Are we commenting on the presentation, that we're gonna give them bullet points?
No,
or
but
what?
let's let him finish, otherwise.
so one last thing to note on Varick Street is that similar to Church and Sixth, this would require the repurposing of an average of 2 parking spots per block for visibility reasons.
So it's 2 per block or 4 per block?
2 per block on average. So West Broadway, similar to what we've talked about to a large extent, there's a buffered bike lane, we want to flip it with the parking, shorten the crossing distance, everything I've already said pretty much. The only unusual blocks on West Broadway are between Chambers and Murray Street. If you go down West Broadway, it widens out starting at Chambers. The whole street becomes 3 lanes, and then 2 blocks later narrows back down to 2 lanes. So we're proposing to make it 2 lanes so that it's consistent with the rest of the corridor and install a protected bike lane. And the West Broadway in particular, this would require the repurposing of approximately 0.75 parking spaces per block.
0.75?
Mhm.
Would that affect traffic?
No, so again, we did an analysis to make sure that we could drop a lane here. And there's actually a lot of excess capacity on West Broadway, believe it or not. Yeah, we're confident it won't have an impact.
What's wrong with the big street?
All right, so on to the second part of the presentation. This is our sort of some of the standard bike lanes we want to put in to improve connections. I don't know how easy this map is to see from way in the back, but the route today, if you're biking from the Brooklyn Bridge to say the Hudson River Greenway, out front here,
Where?
Hudson River Greenway.
the Hudson River Greenway. So the route today is to go up Center Street, right in front of this building, go down Reed Street, which has a bike lane, and then when Reed terminates at Greenwich, you turn left on Greenwich and right on Chambers Street. And then you cross West Street and get to the Greenway.
Okay.
Yeah.
Many of us have enjoyed the Reed Street bike lane for many years, but there's a couple things that are left to be desired about this route. One, it's a bit circuitous, and 2, many of these streets don't have enough physical width for a conventional bike lane.
That's the problem I saw on Reed, when, since people live there, I've seen people have to, especially with elderly or children, they have to, pull over, double park to let their children or elderly people out. And the only place to do it safely is the bike lane.
The bike lane,
And
right?
then sometimes there's no, on both the pedestrian, both the bike and the car, there's not the patience that's required, and I've seen conflicts there, but there's no other way to do it when you're dropping somebody off, especially if they're not mobile.
Right.
Because that street is a 1 lane.
And in Reed Street, at least we have the room for a bike lane on Center Street.
Reed
on-
Street is
on-
one
on Greenwich,
lane.
right, but there's a dedicated bicycle lane. If you go on Center Street or Greenwich Street or Chambers, there's nothing. If you're using shared lanes, we have to share the lane with traffic. So under our proposal, which includes installing conventional bike lanes on Barclay Street, Park Place, and Murray Street, cyclist gets off the Brooklyn Bridge, turns left onto the new bike lanes on Park Row, and once they get to Broadway, they can either turn left down the soon-to-be-built Broadway protected bike lane, or continue straight onto Barclay Street, go up Church, left on Murray, and get to the Greenway, all with conventional bike lanes. No shared lanes.
Conventional meaning the little picture of the bike, the shared roadway.
No, those are shared lane markings. So everything we're proposing is like a 5-foot wide dedicated
Not
bicycle lane.
buffered though.
Not buffered.
Yeah, it's just with the painting in the.
Similar to what you have on Reed Street, where there's 2 lines and the
It's a
symbol in the middle.
picture- Yeah, okay, so,
Just with, it's like, that's the. bike.
sorry.
No worries.
I was
So,
gonna ask.
so cyclists coming back the other direction from the Greenway, come down Murray Street, turn down Greenwich, and go across on Park Place. I'm sorry, oh, wait, I say, go down, yeah, that's right, go down West Broadway and Park Place. And one thing I want to mention here is that we're also interested in the very wide last 2 blocks of Greenwich Street between Murray and Barclay Street. Originally, we were hoping to propose a bike lane there as part of this project, but there's an ongoing World Trade Center capital project on Greenwich Street. So just know that we are interested in rethinking those excessively wide blocks.
Those are good blocks for bikes, I think.
Say what?
No, I think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
The funny thing is, those are the only 2 blocks I've heard in the presentation that make sense because you have the actual topography that will support that. Those other side streets, it's.
Mitch, can we let them finish,
What?
please? we have a lot to get through today.
But a lot of the other people on the committee aren't familiar maybe with certain blocks, so just like I'm not when they're talking about Erickson Place, and I wanna know what it is.
Could you didn't say where on Chambers Street? Which side of the street would the bike lane be on?
Oh, the bike lane, so, on Murray Street, it would be on the right side, which for the one-way portion. So I got a couple cross sections
On the
here.
north side of the street.
On the north side of the street, and then the two-way part of Murray Street between West and Greenwich would be, there'd be bike lanes on both sides of the street. And then the same goes for Park Place and Barclay Street. Just a conventional bike lane on the right side of the street.
I was thinking about the little segment of Chambers leading up to the Greenway.
Oh, so that's already existing, I don't know when we installed that, maybe 10 years ago? And that's just a shared lane marking going, I think, westbound. So there's nothing, I mean, that's existing. All right, we're proposing something better.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I will look at it again. I didn't notice it going westbound because you can't cross the street. Never mind.
There's probably markings there that have been worn away.
Are you talking about?
You're talking Chambers?
Chambers Street, yeah.
Yeah, it kind of goes across the lane to bring you to the straight headline, because when you go down Chambers, the stamps start on the right side, and then they kind of move you to the center because it
Because
takes
it's
you
the
out of the
right
right turn lane.
Right.
You're talking about Chambers Street from Broadway going all the way west?
Chambers, no, only Chambers from Greenwich Street to
Fine,
the
thank you.
West
Otherwise
Street.
it would be suicide.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I mean, we're not proposing anything on
No,
Chambers
no,
Street.
Right, right.
There's no space.
All right, and then
Wait,
nope.
Tammy, you had a question?
Specifically, I apologize for being late, but there's a massive amount of construction currently on Murray. Do you have and there's already transportation issues with that particular street, especially from Broadway to Church, due to the lack of accessibility of the 250 Broadway loading dock. So even though there's construction on the first half of the block, the second half of the block is frequently blocked by not only cars on each side, but double parked trucks. I don't know if within the context of creating this plan, any of the buildings were spoken to, because the loading dock at 250 Broadway is not functional because they use it as a parking garage instead.
Well, go ahead.
I was gonna say, we typically come to the board first and we hear these kinds of things, or we get more information, then we can go reach out to any places where we feel like it's
Yeah,
needed.
Murray Street is a main street for the downtown connection route, and one of their more utilized stops. They presented at Transportation 3 months ago, I believe. And they have issues on that block itself as well, with buses not getting by. So my concern would be with even the proposal of adding, that it will compound the existing traffic problems that exist on Murray.
Well, I'll say this. For one, we're not planning to remove any travel lanes on Murray, although it only has one lane. And something that we've seen elsewhere is that when double parking is a big issue, the police often has an easier time ticketing when people are parked in the bike lane. So hopefully, by installing a bike lane and better organizing the street into, marked parking lanes, bike lane, travel lane, that when it's violated, we can get a better response.
I love the thought of that, but they're currently parked in the bus stop, double parked, and no one has a ticket, because they're also New York City.
They're all placards and
That's the
city
problem.
So I would encourage you to do some real life walking on that block at any point in time, because the buses cannot stop in the bus stops. They are prevented by the placards of all kinds that are there.
Although it is illegal, the placards to be in a bus stop too. I mean, it
It's
is.
all illegal, but if you can't
Yeah.
fix with enforcement, adding another would actually endanger a bicyclist more than help the bicyclist because of the current situation. So I just encourage you to kind of take a look at that.
Okay?
Most of that street parking locally is placard parking. There's very few legitimate spot, even meter things, so it goes, like what she's saying, multiply it by a lot of the other streets that we've been talking about.
We certainly are looking forward to hearing more about DOT's placard enforcement effort.
Very much.
You sure we look forward?
We're looking forward to it. Anything will help.
And what kind of connection are you providing for people trying to go east off of West Street? I see Murray.
Yeah, so they would go down Murray Street and then turn down West Broadway, where we're proposing a protected bike lane, and then they could connect to Park Place, which would take them to Broadway.
And the Park Place thing that's in green, that's what's outside here. basically, sort of, no,
Um,
not really.
where are we? We're here.
Yeah.
We're over here on Center
Park
Street.
Row, yeah.
So Park Row.
But the Park Row area, there's some green.
Yeah, this,
bike
yeah,
area.
right out front.
So Park Place will have a standard bike lane on either side, either direction?
Right, there's the only block that's two ways between Church and Broadway, and that would look like this.
Oh, I see.
But then the previous blocks between Greenwich and Church Street, it's one way it would look like. This was one bike lane.
Okay, thanks.
Excuse me, besides the increased enforcement for the cars, which is necessary for the safety, once this is installed, will you also advocate for increased enforcement for the bicyclists too, so that there's just safety all around?
Mitch, that's our job, and we will get to all that,
Every
let's
time
let
you don't
him
like
finish.
something,
It's not a-
you cut something off, and when you like something, then you let them finish. This is I think it's a fair question, because you were talking about enforcement with the cars. So I'd just like to hear a response. I think some of the other people are interested also.
I was gonna buy a bicycle ride on the sidewalk coming up here.
Like I said, everything looks great, but there needs to be enforcement on all sides, not just one, so that everybody is safer. So are you also looking at increased enforcement on that side also?
Well, we can't increase enforcement, right? That's PD, so we have
Well,
communication
he
with
just said
them.
that he wanted to increase enforcement on
No.
the cars too.
No, he actually said that when there is a bike lane put in, sometimes it's easier for the PD to
Okay.
enforce.
Sorry, Mitch, that's exactly what I meant. It's our job to go to NYPD, not to ask DOT to go to the NYPD
Well, they have
first.
influence.
They should coordinate.
Okay, sorry, Betty.
All right, last slide. Just a summary of benefits. Improving connectivity for the bicycle network in Tribeca, shortening crossing distances, discouraging speeding. That's it. Are there any other questions?
Are you gonna have put in ballards, any types of ballards anywhere?
Yes.
Where?
So the bollards would,
Because they're I see them all in the West Village, and they bulb out generally too far. It seems like there's not a real calculation on turning radiuses when you have to make that turn, so,
For cars or bikes?
for vehicles, which makes it dangerous for everyone.
yeah, when
all
we
around.
design these things, we
Right,
run
so
software that shows
when-
how different vehicles can
so-
turn, fire
yeah.
trucks, we make sure they can all make
So-
it. And this is a pretty wide street, so
So
it
the
actually should be pretty
flexible
easy to
ones,
make.
I just drive over them, because it's ridiculous that you have to go all the way around, and you're almost on the crosswalk by the sidewalk. I don't know who's calculating these turning radiuses, to be honest with you, because whoever's doing it must not drive a car, because they just not feasible a lot of times, and particularly for bigger vehicles. So where are these ballards or anything gonna be?
And these painted pedestrian islands. We have these flexible delineators, if you're not familiar with them, they're these white plastic bollards that come up that we can install on the street relatively quickly and cheaply and can be replaced when they're damaged.
Why do they have to be there?
They have reflective material on them that makes the pedestrian space safer, so that people are less likely to back into it when they're in a parking spot or pull into it while they're driving down the street.
I don't see that that's
if
actually
there's a
real
specific-
consider, to be honest with you, I don't see
I
it.
kinda like it, but I don't understand, so in the striped spaces, on both sides or just one side? Is that what you?
Just around the tan islands, the
So,
pedestrian islands.
so at the crosswalks, so where the crosswalk goes across the bike lane, we'll install an island, a painted island, in the floating parking lot.
I get it.
Is it gonna be anything like
Yeah,
it
yeah,
is
so it's
on,
kinda give you like a little
on
square thing.
13th Street, 12th Street, 11th Street?
No, that's a much narrower street.
Between, you know what I'm talking about, like between 5th and 7th, like.
I think it'll be more similar to what you might see on 7th Avenue or 7th Avenue
And
South.
then what about any of the bigger ballads that will jut out at the end where the traffic light is, like like that is over there, if you know what I mean?
No, we won't be using that design on these corridors.
Alright, because that's ridiculous as well. But,
So if there's specific locations where you feel like it's really an
Yeah.
issue, you could let us know, but in general, those
but you know
designs,
specifically what I'm talking about.
but those
on
designs are generally
13th,
designed
12th,
to
11th
make
Street,
people, to take
Where
the
you
turn
get
very
to
slow.
it and then it just juts out there, right? You know, I just wanna make sure you know what I mean.
Yeah, I know what
the
you mean, but
difference
I'm saying
between
those
the
are designed specifically so that you take the turn slowly. So that is the intent. If there's a specific location where
Yeah.
it seems like even taking it slowly isn't feasible, you can let us know,
doesn't
but
work.
that is the
I'm not
intent.
It just makes things worse.
With
I
that,
don't know
can
what you
you,
mean. I don't know what
the one, there's 23rd and 7th Avenue, is that kind of like what you're talking about, the design, where you have, like, you walk a few feet and then you get to that little island before you cross again? Is that, you know, 20?
Oh, it kind of, that one's concrete, it's a little different.
Okay,
Um,
because like I said, sometimes I see people, they'll walk the few feet.
Yeah, I
but
would
bicycles
use
sometimes
that,
are coming-
that's not a good,
Yeah, okay.
I don't know if that's a good
I
comparison.
see almost accidents
Like this,
other ways, you know?
go to 11th Street and 12th Street, that's what it is,
One
so,
of
so you drive here
one
and
of
you gotta
the
go.
streets that we have a lot of
like that.
pedestrian traffic
Good drive.
issues that things have been consistently knocked down, that we've talked to
And these are
DOT
huge, you can't
for
drive over them.
years about, is that corner
It's your truck.
of Duane. And there was a bump out done
Dwayne
there.
This is the
and what street?
bicycle, this is the bicycle.
Duane and West Broadway. And so there's been bump outs there, on the corner of where, on the northeast corner. There have been bump outs placed there consistently with the reflective surfaces.
Right.
They don't last longer than a month, maybe 2.
Yeah.
And I've almost run over those on my bike without seeing them.
So-
It's dangerous for bikes.
It's very dangerous for bicyclists at that particular corner because the trucks, there's lots of parking around that whole corner. I understand the motivation to make it safer for bicyclists and for pedestrians, but that particular corner strikes me as one of the classic examples of a Lower Manhattan solution that didn't work and still continues to this day because the reflective things get knocked down. Sometimes they're down, sometimes they're up. If you don't know that neighborhood and you're riding, you very much can be riding.
Tammy, is that where the
over
balloon
and
shop
through.
is? Okay, now I know where it is.
So I have a concern about some of the treatments when we're looking at that based on it. The other thing is when you were mentioning Park Place, if I remember correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong, but from the corner of Greenwich, from where you're talking about going up, isn't half that block a city bike station and the other half loading for the building
Yeah.
on the north side of the street? So how can you do what you have proposed? Because half that block is already a city bike station.
So is the city bike station in the parking lane? Adjacent to the curb?
It's in the street, so I guess you call that adjacent to the curb, yes,
Right.
if that's the terminology. And then the other half, we've had many presentations by DOT coming the other direction in terms of traffic flow into the neighborhood, right? For coming off the Brooklyn Bridge, the connections going west, and the conversations about how the different streets work with construction and loading and things like that. So I just have a concern that this does not seem to include any of the conversations that were had in 2018 and 19 in this area.
So, first let's talk about Park Place, the part that's one way. It's 34 feet wide. We're proposing to have a parking lane on each curb, one travel lane, and one conventional bike lane. So the city bike station that goes in the parking lane where people normally park, that would go here, at the curb next to the bike lane. And when there's a loading zone, say, or dedicated parking, adjacent to one of the buildings, that will also be in the parking lanes. So people can still park, they can still load and unload in those spaces. We aren't proposing to remove any parking spaces on Park Place. I'm not sure about the details of what you're saying on Barclay Street. There was a plan years ago to change the parking regulations. Is that it? Well, the
Sorry,
parking
I've been
reg.
around long enough that I can remember many of these things.
Oh, is this kind of related to the post office?
There were many changes. One was related to the post office, one was related to changes done on campus, for the World Trade Center campus, for the roads that are
Right.
there.
Yes.
And then this doesn't take into account potentially the opening or not of the Performing Arts Center and the abundance of traffic. Have you considered that?
So there's only one travel lane today on Barclay Street. We aren't proposing to remove any travel lanes on Barclay Street. So if there's any new developments, new things coming in, a bike lane or not won't change the vehicular capacity of the
Well, are you
street.
familiar with some of the new developments that have come before our board, like a 3,000 seat theater in that area? Because there should be some, this is not your fault, but there should be some, whatever the word, coordination between the different things, because
Right.
like if we do something that's good now and then somebody else does something that's good for them next year, then it becomes like really dangerous, so.
Okay, well, let me just finish. So first of all, we're not proposing to remove any lanes at Barclay Street. So no impact on vehicular congestion on Barclay Street as a result of this bike lane. We also aren't proposing to remove any parking lanes. So if there's special loading zones on either side, I know there's a lane that's used by the Port Authority for people turning left on West Broadway, I think, to
Yes.
enter World Trade Center site. That will all be left intact. All we're proposing is to use paint to add a 5-foot conventional bike lane on the right side of the street. But as much as I like this, I definitely won't solve all the problems you bring up. And we definitely have more work to do, I think, to get all, our loading zones and our congestion and people illegally parking in bus stops. There's definitely a lot of issues in Tribeca that need attention.
Can you talk to your future connection on Greenwich Street that you have listed here? What that means?
Not really. Yeah, well, it's an excessively wide street. So if you go down Greenwich, it's a couple lanes, it's not that wide, and then when you pass Murray, it widens out enormously. And so there's a lot of excess width there. Some of the things we're looking at doing is taking up some of that space, having angled parking on both sides of the street, maybe having some bigger pedestrian spaces to help you cross, because right now it's such a long crossing, it's like 70 feet. Maybe installing a protected bike lane to help connect Murray Street to Barclay Street, but those are all still very preliminary, because some of there's still plans to build it out as part of a World Trade Center capital construction project.
South of Murray, which includes the school that's there.
Right.
And the Green Market.
Yes.
Since you brought up Greenwich Street, there are some signal timing issues a little further north. You can look into that. It's causing some queuing up by the Citibank building. Green light, then one turns red, and the next one at Northmore turns red, then the next one's green. So it's not sequenced right. I don't know if it's, I don't think it was intentional. Maybe there's some timing problem with the mechanisms in there. But because it's like right in front of the Citibank building where there's queuing problems already and double, triple parking, it's causing problems.
Yeah, we can look into that.
Do you have any influence, because this is actually dangerous for both the bicyclists and the cars. We've talked about it, the cobblestones that are all broken as Greenwich Street starts up by Vestry and then down. I mean, that's a hazard for bicycles, forget about cars. So if there's gonna be any lanes coming, is there any influence that you guys have in helping, in pushing for that? Because bicycles, I mean, there could be no bike, I mean, it's just dangerous for both bicycles and cars there.
So there's one block of Varick Street, that's on this map.
No, not Varick.
I know, but so there's one cobblestone block of Varick Street between Lake and Canal where we installed a little granite bike path in 2015. And it works relatively well because it's pretty flat. It was very labor intensive to send our crews out to do it, and there's some of the more of those coming. They're coming in Dumbo as part of a capital project. They're coming in the meatpacking district. But you're talking about Greenwich Street north of Hubert, right, where it's all
Mark, the streets, do you know where they are?
where it's all cobblestone.
Which one are you
It's better,
specifically speaking of?
When you
Fix
come,
it.
let's
Someone
say
fix
if I
not
don't have
every
a car,
street,
but when I'm
but
in a
part
car a
of
few
it.
times, when you make a left, like when you come off the west side highway, the Vestry, and then make a right on Greenwich, those
Yes.
next
Cobblestone
like 3 or 4 blocks, it's actually dangerous for both bicycles, motorcycles, and cars.
If Vestry's
a little
cobblestone
better.
all
They
the way
fixed some of
through.
They did? Okay, I haven't, okay.
But not all of it.
The
Yeah.
intersection was fixed at late, but
Can
that's
we
fine.
make a request as a CV that this plan not necessarily go into all the construction is finished on Murray? Because I can't conceptually understand it very well, but until the construction is gone, which takes up a full parking lane, it doesn't seem like.
I mean, that's probably true regardless of if you guys asked us to or not. I mean, if there's construction that's preventing us from getting through, then it'll have
There's
to wait.
massive construction at the edge of where you are right now, Church Street in particular,
We should
has
do a
been ripped up
resolution on it.
several times. Lucian, is there a point that we can have that dialogue? That we can say whether or not we are supportive of this, but we do not want it done until all the construction is finished on Murray, on Church, in this zone?
Well, it's my understanding that while ongoing DDC work is in place, then there won't be any striping or capital implementation of like some of the islands until they're out of the intersection, because they're going to be constantly moving around that intersection until that's sewn up.
without a Lower Manhattan Construction Command Center anymore, I have very little faith unless we go on record saying it specifically. No offense to the Department of Transportation and the plans, but we've seen already DDC fix something with Con Ed just to rip it up for water mains and planned that way. So I would really like to make sure that we stand, if we want it to work and we don't want people to be run over by the next set of construction, then let's get the construction finished and then move on to a better path.
Yeah.
So I think in the vein of this discussion, we are aware of impending work on West Broadway per DDC's presentation to Community Board 1. To Tammy's point, we're well aware that that is scheduled to begin, I think, this next upcoming construction season. So there should certainly be coordination with that. Also, I received very early on plans for Greenwich Street as well. And so these are the things that I think that these members have seen time and again. Capital construction work come in directly after, other work.
Right.
And it just kind of turns into an endless cycle of breaking and pouring concrete. And that's something that we were trying to avoid because this
And it's a
community,
waste of money.
it's a waste of money, but
Nobody
also
else is-
the
But I
community's been in reconstruction for 18 years.
And I also have real concerns that if you break the street, you fix the street, we set everything up for bicyclists, we set a beautiful path, and then you break the street again, then you're putting the bicyclists back into a construction zone. When if they had just waited till the second cycle is done, then it's nice and clean and you can set a pathway, because there's nothing more dangerous than, for example, the corner on Duane Street. It works and it doesn't. It works and it doesn't. And that sense of unreliability
You don't know
because
where you're
of,
going.
There certainly is a pipeline. There's what we expect to finish, which some projects have languished slightly longer than they were intended to. However, we also know that there's a pipeline of future projects, so as best as we can coordinate with the Department of Design and Construction, and then also DEP, just to see if they have any other kind of future plans. And
Yeah, because it would be great to have it approved and then just go right into effect, because then we get it done.
but I don't want to be
After.
prescriptive. I'm personally not being prescriptive to DOT. I just want them to be aware that sister agencies do have less respect for your work than you have for your own.
Yeah.
Is I think the point that is being made.
The thing is, I think we've heard, in addition to what Tammy just said, and almost everyone had a concern or comment that I think needs to be addressed by the agency. And so I think we should coalesce all those comments, and then in addition to what Tammy said, into a resolution. We've been like an hour talking about everyone's type of concerns, and I think that we should put that into a resolution to get on the record with the concerns, and then also with the
Waiting
what
until.
Tammy said as well.
but it does seem to me like, if
So I
we're
don't-
gonna do that, and it's up to the chair, so I defer to the chair, but I do think that we need to also, I haven't heard one person say this is untenable. So it sounds like we are all,
That's not here and there. I mean, we get a lot of proposals that don't seem untenable, but we have concerns and things we want tweaked and things like that we should get on the
I mean,
record.
because maybe it would be like as presented right now, it looks good, but come back to us when we're closer to the end of it all.
So I don't
Well, I think-
necessarily agree, I
Excuse me.
personally don't
Excuse
necessarily.
me.
Excuse me,
the chair
thank you for
speaking.
everyone taking
my
control of the
question is
meeting.
for the chair, because the
Yeah.
chair has to
I was
make
gonna say, the
Not
fact
necessarily,
is,
someone seconds the resolution.
Mark,
Please.
Mark, let the chair
there are a
speak.
number of people who are not speaking. Most of the people who use bicycles and would benefit. So for the people who would not benefit and see it as an inconvenience, we're not gonna do this based on that. And I'd like to hear the end of it.
So
The
you're
resolution
shooting
can
down
wait for
Tammy's
another
and Mark's
month.
proposal?
But
I
it's,
just-
I don't know, it's not based on what you just said.
All I asked was if the chair was willing to consider
Well, if a resolution is proposed and
a
seconded.
reso supporting this, which is where I was going,
Isn't that a majority?
with concerns.
Can be considered next month.
What?
Sounds like, I believe Betty's saying that she would like to consider a resolution on
Yes,
this
because I'd
next
like to
month.
hear from more people. There are a few people who are dominating this, and I'd like to hear
Anyone
from
can
some.
speak, Betty.
And I'm not saying they can't.
She's inviting other people to speak at this point.
Sure.
Yeah, well, John, actually, I would support like both, because I think more time is necessary. I mean, well, because I would like to see what happens, based on what you're saying, and what other people have said, once the construction's finished, then it'll make sense to see.
But then you need to do a reserve.
Then you agree with Tammy.
Right, yeah.
Oh, so, okay, so
Yeah, I
ask
do.
other people, Betty, then, so far,
I agree with Tammy, but I'm okay
She-
waiting until next month if you wanna invite more people too, that's fine.
That's fine.
Well,
Because we
all-
know it's not gonna
all-
happen.
Excuse me,
everyone,
Erin,
order please.
let's let Michael speak and then Pat, you can speak.
Yeah, sure. I was just gonna say, sorry to derail our conversation. Going back to just well, thank you for coming. I'm just glad to see, it's nice to see a comprehensive, like, plan in place. I've seen like a few, like, you know, bike lanes going here or there, but it really is nice to see this comprehensive plan, because I've biked on those north and southbound streets, and I think these are gonna be very real safety upgrades for cyclists. I have two concerns, and one you addressed was the fact that I think it was Church or West Broadway. It doesn't go north of like that intersection around Canal.
And Lisbonard.
Yeah, and Lisbonard, and that intersection is I feel very unsafe in that intersection. So I know you said you guys are going to get to it, so I just want to second that. I hope you guys get to it.
Absolutely.
And then the second is the east-west streets. I mean, Tammy was talking about it, but they are going to be double parked in. Like, at least that's been my experience on conventional bike lanes going like east and west. And so I was curious, did you consider any like different treatments, or have you had success in different treatments on east-west bike lanes similar to this in preventing double parking?
So just in the last couple of years, we've installed some new designs on what I want to say, 12th and 13th streets, 26th and 29th, 52nd and 55th streets. And there's a few different designs we have. They all have pluses and negatives. I think, at least in my opinion, the most successful ones are where we removed half the parking on the street, which is a big compromise, and is, I think, something we're willing to do, but it's a tough balancing act.
You're in a commercial zone where people need loading, so.
Exactly. So those are all pretty narrow streets for the most part, and most of the protected bike lanes we've done has been on wider avenues where we have a little more room, a little more vehicular capacity we can play with.
if you put a protected bike lane, let's say almost on Reed, a larger van would not be able to possibly go around.
Right,
Or an ambulance.
They're tough to design and they're tough to implement. I still believe in them, and I think they're good. And I hear a lot of your concerns. You know, I mean, we all know that regular bike lanes in New York often are obstructed by something. And you know, sometimes with street networks like this, sometimes I think that even when they're blocked, at least they'll provide some sort of guidance on how to get through what is a pretty complicated street network, with all the one-ways coming in two ways and streets dead-ending and different things. Of course, a protected bike lane would be more desirable. Yeah, I hear what you're saying.
But I think, as you were saying before, painting the line gives some more ability to enforce against it, and also we can always look at curb regulations and try to discourage double parking, but it's at least a starting point where you carve out the space, and then as we can, make adjustments to make them function better. And I just wanted to reiterate, like, just a big picture of this project, just to kind of remind people that I think this is a really exciting project because we have these big changes for cyclists and for safety on the wider streets without really taking away any traffic capacity and very minimal parking impact. And it's all paint. So, and then the side streets, it's true, it's just conventional bike lanes. So it's again paint. So while I understand the concerns about the timing with various construction, we do coordinate to the best of our ability with that construction. We are coordinating with DDC on Granite Street, which is why we're not putting something in right there, because we know they're about to begin construction. So I think we're happy to hear anything that you might know about that we don't know about, but at the same time, I think these are really important safety benefits that we want to make sure we can move forward with in the short term.
And Patrick?
So two thoughts. First of all, to my mind, the more protected bike lanes, obviously, the better. I think that's an even better goal. But you only have so much space between the two curbs, and the more that, and this applies not just in Tribeca, but really community district wide, the more that we see DOT managing that space and ordering and not losing traffic capacity and making everybody happy, the better. So I'm all for those kind of plans, and I appreciate that you come and present them. To the point about the construction projects that are going on, and maybe to sort of advance the discussion, if we can get a better sense of what those capital projects that are ongoing and on the horizon are, because I'll bet you some of them that are on the horizon are going to be on the 18 to 24 month time frame. And if we say as a community board that we hope DOT puts this off until that project's done, this is never going to get done because the construction's never going to end. After that project, there's going to be another capital project and another capital project. I think you have to solve for those pockets of issues that you have as and when they arise. But the more you can coordinate, to Tammy's point and Mark's point, I think obviously the better the plan will be.
It's a good point. And I think there are certain situations where there's construction that impacts the bike lane and we can design a temporary solution to get people around it. Then there's situations like what you're talking about, where you're talking about at Worth Street, that's kind of unsolvable. We sort of have to wait for it to finish. And so I think we have to look at each construction issue on its own.
For example, on West Street.
Wait.
Sorry, Tammy had
Tim,
a
sorry,
Okay.
Tim, we wait for the committee members first, and then we'll get to you.
I have and I apologize, it was not my choice to be late today. Vesey Street is now pedestrian only, with no plans according to the campus to reopen. And I'm wondering why we haven't looked at better utilizing that street, because from west all the way over to Broadway, it's only pedestrian. So why I'd love to hear from DOT's purposes, why that wasn't looked as a more direct bicycle connection to provide east-west access in a really meaningful way to keep them away from cars, which is always a big concern for me. And then the street that's right parallel to that, and I'm like, is that Barclay or Park Place, which is also far less traveled by vehicles than, for example, Murray is, or Warren is, or Reed. Those are the three main east-west streets for both buses, cars, deliveries, and everything. Whereas you have Barclay and Park Place.
Barclay has the Four Seasons Hotel, and there are constantly cars just
It does have the
coming
Four
in.
Seasons, but
Talking about one south of
that.
Vesey?
Yeah. I mean, Vesey Street
It's not
itself is,
Fulton.
no, Vesey Street itself is closed
Yeah.
from West Street all the way over to
Church.
Craig Nancy.
Right.
My name's Craig, I work with Nick and the bike unit, and we've been coordinating with the Port Authority concerning this and their campus overall. So we hope to take a greater look within, and hopefully, like, you make a good point about Bessie and the other routes within
because
there. So-
Bessie seems to be
Yeah.
like
I
such
think these
a beautifully safe place.
correct, and
You
I,
know about where the PATH train entrance is?
with the route expanding in the area, we need more funds. So we're gonna,
Because I understand
we'll
crossing
continue the conversation
to
with them
Murray
and
and
hopefully.
coming down Greenwich, but I don't see why you wouldn't then just send them up Bessie.
No, it's a very good point, and we want to continue having that dialogue with them, and it's hopefully from here with them.
So would that plan be in addition to this as a future?
Yes.
And
Yeah,
not
it's a
just
whole
replacement?
campus, I mean, as you know, so we'd have to work with the Port Authority.
Can I ask, is that Bessie, is that like where,
Right, I'm
Mitch,
sorry.
wait.
what, Betty?
We're gonna wait to let everyone get recognized, so we just don't want spontaneous speaking of people, if you don't
This
mind.
has to do with what Tammy was bringing up, because I'm not sure if, is that where the entrance on Bessie, where the people, one of the entrances to the PATH train?
Yes.
Okay, so that whole street, right, is off. I very rarely take that, but, because I'm just a commuter. I don't have a car or a bicycle. But I just, there's hundreds of thousands of people every day walking that whole area that's blocked off, back, I mean, I don't know how you would put anything else there, because unless you enforce pedestrian walking.
Yeah. Mitch,
That's a good
can we
point.
leave that for a minute, because they're not even talking about that street.
He just said
It's
that
not-
was a good point, Betty.
It was a good point. I will say, similar to what Craig said, we are working with the
But you're
Port
right,
Authority
I mean, it's not a
because
good point.
Port Authority is starting to finish up all the roads within their area, and they're looking to work with us to develop bike networks, bike routing that makes sense within the World Trade Center site. And this is one of the streets we've been talking about. So,
A boon to safety.
Yeah.
I want to get to the rest of the committee members first. Mimi, do you have something to say?
Well, I just figured I should mention that I don't I live in that area and I don't ride my bike in the area. I'd go down east and then head up from Battery Park, because it's horrifying and I'm not that brave. But
Yeah, that's agreed.
I do feel like I would ride on Bessie, and I think I did cut across once, and I like legit was on the sidewalk, and I'm really sorry for that. But also, like, I don't want to cross the West Side Highway, so I don't know. I just figured I
Well,
should.
you wanna get to the Greenway?
I
Yeah,
go
the
around.
greenways on all sides, yeah, the bike path.
You can cross at Vesey to get to the Greenway with everybody else, and that's why I was suggesting Vesey for bicyclists, because you can come off the Greenway and get to a fully protected bike path that'll take you 3 blocks straight and cut off traffic lights and so many things.
Okay, anybody else from the committee? Great, then. I know you've been waiting.
Well, I was waiting till everybody, I have one more question for him. You said something that was actually very interesting, where there's construction, then you're looking for other solutions. So since you guys have much more experience, I'm trying to figure, like, we brought up on West Broadway, approaching Worth, where they have all that construction on the east side. So what is something that you could say, like, where they're coming down, and then how could you make a bike lane work by, you know, like you were talking about solutions, and I'm just trying to think, like.
Well, in that specific situation, I mean, it's hard to say without looking at a drawing and debating it with a bunch of engineers, but, I don't know, I mean, you could,
I mean, there's complete construction on the east side, and that's been going on for a long time, so I'm just trying to see, like, how you might normally do it, like, and Patrick was saying, like, I kind of agree with Tammy, but I agree a little with Patrick, but it seems impossible to do both in certain situations, other than having, like, bikes jutting out across and endangering them.
right, well, each one of these would have to be looked at on a case-by-case basis, and we'd have to sit down and, it definitely wouldn't be a one-size-fits-all solution.
Okay.
We'd have to look carefully at each one.
Thank you. I support more bike lanes that are protected, because buffered bike lanes are just double parking lanes and they're really not much safer. But I did want to address the construction issues, and I would discourage the community board from putting that resolution in, because one construction site will be done and another one will start. And then another one will start. So it's never gonna end. There's always construction. But my point to construction is passing construction on your bike is one of the most dangerous things in the city I've ever encountered. The site on Canal heading toward Erickson Place has these big barriers, and you have to bow out from the barriers and go in, and any car will hit you if they go around that barrier and don't see you right away. It's frightening. And I would really emphasize that, I don't know who makes the rules, but to change construction laws on those sites to protect cyclists, because there's no visibility in those types.
So we have been starting to reform that aspect of our permitting process, particularly when it's a protected bike lane. There's a few examples, I don't know if you'll, like 9th Avenue in Hell's Kitchen, there was a DEP project that tore up the street for years, and there we were able to design a kind of rough solution that had a bike lane with buffers that went around it.
Around what street? I'm familiar with that area.
On 9th Avenue.
I know, but what street? The 9th Avenue?
It was up in
Was
the
it like in the 40s or 50s?
Okay.
I just
Way up
rode
there.
through that the other day, and I missed the buffer, and I wound up in traffic. So it has to be really visible.
Right, and we have to go out there and
On
check on
Rector
them, make sure
Street-
they're not getting taken apart. It's a lot of work on our end, but we're starting to get better about it,
For instance,
absolutely.
on Rector Street, there's construction, and that's where I live, and I can't get up the street where there's because there's a barrier.
Betty, may I ask a question of the public? Ma'am, would you say that was the Vestry Street reconstruction? Do you think it was related to the Vestry Street reconstruction project?
Which one?
The one that you said had put you out into traffic?
That's south of Canal, right?
Yeah, it
Yes,
basically,
yes, right there
okay, so
where-
I'm gonna call them tomorrow and ask them
It's
to,
really bad.
yeah.
Yeah, thank you. There's a concrete strip on the cobblestones, and then you come across Canal. After you come across.
Yeah, I'll look and I'll ask them how they have their barrels laid out, but I'll make sure that they're not pushing people into traffic.
They also often have raised fencing, so you can't see around the fencing.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions? Then thank you.
Oh, so,
Thank you.
not a question, but how are we gonna, decide this? Is this gonna be, you took notes on the concerns? And then can they be
Yes, and
emailed
it's
to
on
you?
tape.
And then, next month, we'll formulate a resolution with the concerns?
Maybe.
But,
I don't think that's decided, but we can certainly explore that, and I will listen to the tape again as well,
well,
because we're from both
Can we
sides.
take a poll of all the members to see how everybody feels?
I mean, it's not gonna be a resolution saying we're denying the project, it's a
Guys,
resolution
If you
saying.
said your piece,
we
you
should
gotta
put-
wait and let somebody else. I'm raising my hand.
Well,
just
I
like
was still
everybody else.
talking. So it would be a resolution, basically, as we usually do, the project's supported, but we have this concern, that concern, this concern, that concern, it's completely normal, we do that, been doing that been on board 30 years, we've been doing that for 30 years.
Okay.
I'd love to hear if DOT can come back to the community board with a commitment for a review of, and any way that we can help you to activating Vesey Street, because it is already protected from cars. So seeing how we can incorporate bicycles there as a truly, I mean, there's no construction on there that impacts pathways.
Is
making
that instead of or in addition to?
I don't know the answer to that, and I
Okay, I
can't
thought you
make
were
that
asking.
supposition, but they need to be able to come back to us and say, you know what, we'd have to wait 18 months to 2 years to do this plan, but we can open up a pathway on Vesey Street, because we're working with Port Authority this summer or this spring,
Yeah.
and provide a path and see the utilization. So I'm looking for clearly fastest and most protected way to get something
Without
done.
Port Authority.
And if we're looking at construction issues and traffic issues and trying to see where the community board could be helpful in this to get something sooner. So I would be looking to hear back from DOT. So if we are having this discussion next month, then there is a conversation, and maybe Port Authority comes and talks to us with DOT next month about Vesey Street. And maybe there's a solution that is part A, part B. I mean, we're happy to support safety. That's part and parcel to a lot of things we care about in this district.
I second that.
And the question is, I don't wanna say, yeah, this is all great, we wanna do this, or we don't wanna do this, or whatever, however it comes down the pipe. We do have to opine, I believe, as a community board, because you gotta be on record, saying yay or nay, right? Or yay with this, or
Or
nay
fix.
with this, or whatever
Yay,
the
nay, or
case
fix.
is. But I would love to see how a connection with Vesey, which is the most protected area, could work. Because you can get directly from the bike path on the west side, cross the street, and straight up to church.
Thank you.
That's
Yeah,
just-
no, if you could get back to us then about is VC as an addition, whatever,
I
possible
think amongst
as
us,
a
we have
quicker thing.
questions about whether it's currently under our jurisdiction or not, and whether the plans are, that the current situation is temporary, or for how long it will last, and what other construction is happening, and what, yeah. So
Right,
we
whatever
don't-
information you can give
Explore
us.
it.
So
Yeah.
we never turn the street.
Can you just point on the
Not yet.
map, where is Vesey?
Vesey is
Still
one
don't
below
know the
Barton.
streets on the campus.
It's this guy here.
So we
As
need
a
to- we need to
cyclist
work it out.
who wants to ideally go across Chambers, but it's difficult, as little farther south from Chambers, the better. So,
Yeah,
you
no,
know,
it's all of
the
North
streets,
Frederick.
I mean, the streets you have are better than even further south.
Go back to this.
Yeah, because ideally I'd rather use Chambers if that were a workable street.
Good. Well, thank you, yeah. Oh, dear, if anything can be done, and thank you for the presentations.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening.
Well, I still haven't heard for next month what it's gonna be, all I heard was maybe. Which, to me, I don't think is definitive enough. So,
Oh, we are going to get the information to Tammy's, we'll have more
Okay.
information to look at, and then we can get back to it next month, just as a quick, to see what people want to do.
Thank you.
we should have definitely applied, but it's definitely gonna be on the agenda next month.
Thank you, and
Okay.
when you run the committee,
You dropped your sweater.
That's not the
scarf or
point.
something.
That's not the point, Betty. You see, this is why in the bylaws, it states that if a member proposes an agenda item and the majority of the committee agrees with it, the chair cannot do anything about it. So that's why I'm asking you, you're giving me like a wishy-washy answer about, will this be on the agenda next month? I got maybe, we'll look at it, we'll see, we'll talk. So what's the answer?
I said yes twice, and I said, hopefully we'll hear from the DOT, but as she said, there are a number of issues for them to even look into regarding their jurisdiction and other things.
That's fine, but
which
there's
they
no
will be
reason why we
sorting out.
can't opine on what we already heard. We can always opine later on as well. So
Let's
what's the,
move on.
what's the answer?
Mark, I think she said yes, so accept yes as an answer.
I didn't hear you. I heard maybe.
I heard yes
I
twice.
heard yes twice, so let's accept
I
yes.
heard
as-
maybe.
Mark,
That's what I heard.
Okay,
Okay.
So
accept
it's yes?
yes as an answer.
Can we have
If that's the answer, I
people from
accept it.
Stephen Stills?
it's yay. It's yay.
Let's hear about the Tunnels to Towers 5K run, everybody? This way.
It's okay, so do I come over here? I'm not sure where I'm supposed to sit.
No, well,
Wherever
actually,
you prefer, I can move if you want to be here. I can just turn on the video if
I
you
don't
want.
really need, yeah, I don't really need too much.
That's the best thing.
As long as you don't need anything.
And then I go.
Okay, everyone's attention, please.
Yeah.
I'm not about to.
Yeah.
Hi there, everyone.
I know, I hear
Good
you.
evening, thank you for your time. I'm Susan Starr from the Tunnels to Towers Foundation. I'm the Director of Event Operations. So I'm here just to share with you that which we did last year. Last year was our 18th annual Tunnel to Towers run, and I'm just here to, I'd like to show off a little bit of what we accomplished last year, to let you know a little bit about the foundation in case you're not aware. So we are a 9/11 charitable foundation. To date, we have built 85 smart homes for veterans returning home from war in Iraq and Afghanistan. Most of them are triple and quadruple amputees. These are custom designed high-tech homes to restore, the object is to restore some of their dignity and their independence so they can be alone in their homes, and to, ease the burden on their caregivers. In addition, we have a fallen first responder program, and to date, we've paid off the mortgages on 50 homes for fallen first responders. So these are police officers and firefighters killed in the line of duty, and they're home raising small children, so they're left without their breadwinner. In addition, we added a Gold Star program. So if you're unfamiliar, a Gold Star family is a family where the service member is killed and doesn't come home, killed in action. So with your help, we are able to do this. And a big place where we are able to garner our funding is through an annual run, which we've done 18 times. This will be our 19th year. It's the last Sunday in September is designated for the run by the City of New York, so I don't choose the date. So I'm here to ask you to approve that which you will have approved every year. For 18 years, and I got a 3-minute video, and I'm happy to answer any questions, but I just want to show you a little bit in case you're unfamiliar, and then perhaps I can answer any questions that you might have.
Don't do videos.
Great, so let's take a look at last year so you can see what you're all a part of.
Okay, everybody, please direct your eyes to the video-matic.
My brother was the youngest of 7 kids. He was orphaned at age 10. He was brought up by his older siblings. He was as much a son to me as he was a brother. My brother, the New York City firefighter that just finished his night tour at Squad 1 in Brooklyn, 18 years ago, he strapped 60 pounds of fire gear to his back. He ran through that tunnel. That tunnel is nearly 2 miles long. He ran into the South Tower. While him and his other brothers were saving people, they gave up their lives. And when we lost him that day, we knew we had to do something to honor what he did. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. If you really think about why we're here, it's a great day, it's exciting, we're doing wonderful things for each other, but it's about sacrifice. It's about the sacrifice that Stephen Stiller made, and it's about the sacrifice that the Stiller family made to do something different, to do something big. We are only the land of the free because of the brave. Let it be our our promise here today, our contract with America, that when these great men and women who protect our communities or our country, and they give their kids a kiss goodbye, and they do not come home, we are going to take care of them. What did Stephen do? He did just what firefighters, police officers, and our men and women in uniform do every day. They don't run away. They run towards it.
So with your help, oh, thank you. With your help in the past year alone, we've been able to give away 54 mortgage-free homes. And so I ask you to help me do the same in the next year.
I just want to say thank you. I have run with my family almost every year. The only times I haven't run is when I've been injured, which...
You can walk.
I couldn't walk
Twice
either, I
on
had
Bessie
crutches.
Street.
But yeah, but no, it is one of the most moving and amazing events, and thank you. Thank you for
We used to
doing
have,
it and
we used to
doing
have a board member who
Yeah.
routinely organized the neighborhood group. He
Passed
passed
away
from
recently.
9/11 related diseases, but he was a driving force to make sure that the community board supported the
Yeah.
And you've
organization.
been a wonderful support, and as a result of that, after 18 going on 19 years, collectively, with
Yeah.
your help, we've been able to do
Yeah.
so much good.
And I want to say too that on the few years where there've been some issues as it grew bigger, you guys have addressed them. So 100% my support.
Thank you, I pride myself on that, and I appreciate you bringing those forward, because it's
I-
been a pleasure
I
working with
think
you
I have
on
Frank's.
And I remember you, Tammy, because I've been here the past couple of years,
Yeah.
so we do appreciate your feedback, and I know you've sent a couple of emails over the years, helpful emails.
So it's good. Yeah.
Yeah,
so-
Brittany?
Yeah, so I think this is great. I just have a question. So for the street closures, is there a reason why it's like from 12 midnight to 5 p.m.? I'm assuming the race is in the like early morning, so I was just wondering like why.
Yes.
Saturday.
Yes, so Saturday is a big setup day.
Okay.
So we have asked, we came forward last year and asked for a change. We had always had an 8 a.m. setup time that was approved by you. Last year we came in, or the year before, I can't remember if this is the second or third year, we did ask to bump it up to midnight.
Okay.
However, we put some things on the street, we really don't close that street until 8 o'clock, so it always remains 8. It gives us a little bit of a cushion to start to deliver some things. Not to mention, it is just really quiet. You don't have a whole lot of traffic, so it doesn't, by leaving it technically open, doesn't really allow you there's not a whole lot going on there anyway. But I actually don't set up until 8 a.m.
Okay, that's fine. I was just wondering. Thank you.
So pursuant to the conversations we had last year, it's just reminding you that all that setup at midnight, we love from the edge of West Street and less on North End Avenue where the residential building is across the street and the hotel guests are there. So that's the conversation that we talked about from, you know, the middle cross street from Goldman Alley east is that nobody's gonna care because there's no residents right there, but if you can be quieter on North End Avenue, even when they're loading down this, are you across the street now?
It's also yours for.
Yeah. But, so anything that you can do in the overnight to minimize the impact as of the trucks that are coming in would be great.
On North End.
On North End, yep. South End, you didn't do all that much. Everything pretty much came through, so I didn't hear anything from any of that. But, you know, I'm gonna say the same things I say every year, make sure there's a pathway for families to get to the fields.
Yes.
It's also Yom Kippur, just FYI.
Yom
So
Kippur is
I don't
that
know.
weekend?
It's on the 27th. I just don't know how that would affect.
And this is 27th.
Yeah, I just don't know how that would, that could be a
What
good
is it?
thing. Yom Kippur. It could be a good thing for you. I don't know. It could
Sorry,
be a
I
bad
should hear
thing
what
for
you
you.
said. Oh,
I
I
mean,
didn't
I
look at the calendar.
So that's something that I wanna seriously consider. The one nice thing is there'll be less people perhaps on.
On Yom Kippur, what?
It's kind of quieter in
Yeah,
there.
it would be quieter, but I don't know if that gets in the way of anything, service,
The
whatever.
race is Sunday and Yom Kippur is that night.
I thought Yom Kippur
That's Erev
is,
Yom Kippur.
is when?
Saturday night is Sunday night.
Oh, it's not Saturday night?
No,
Okay, so
it's
then
sunset,
that's
so it should be
fine.
fine.
Should be fine.
Oh, it will be long gone and there will not be a single gum wrapper on the street.
Yeah,
I do pride
but
myself
that's-
on that. We do stay behind and make sure every
you guys are out there.
single,
So
I want there to be no
The
evidence.
only other funky thing that you notice is if you can take a look at where last year there was a band located in the middle of West Street, directly by the ball fields, which was lovely for entertainment for those of us who were just hanging out, but you couldn't hear the coaches' calls really well. So it's, you know, one of those things that maybe just a reorientation of where that is would be kind of a good thing. You have done an amazing job of keeping the streets open, getting people through, so I thank you every year that after we worked on it. Are you going for a liquor license or are we done with that?
No, we're done with that. We do not serve liquor.
I know, just asking.
Oh, and for anybody else that hadn't heard it before, and I know you've heard it before, so that's why I'm
And
very
then,
comfortable and confident to say that, no.
what is your target? Because there is a little push feel. You know, we've grown from 2,000 to 10,000 to 15,000, I think, last year, or 18, kind of. I don't remember what the
I want to
numbers
say we're
were.
about 16.
Yeah.
Plus the volunteers, so with the volunteers, it might be 20. We don't see a lot of growth with it, so I feel like we've topped out. Next year is the 20th anniversary, not this year, so I'm not sure if there would be a different interest because it would be the 20th anniversary, but we feel that we've pretty much topped out, and each year it seems to be about the same. We did open by 11 o'clock, we're starting to clean up and move out. By 2 o'clock in the afternoon, it was actually 1:45, they had the West Street back open. So we are very pushed by NYPD to get everything out of the way, stages picked up, and we move, we hustle. So I hope that you've noticed that we do make every effort. I don't know if there are any other concerns.
No, because I live in the building that's closest. So don't worry, I'll let you know if there's a problem, but there hasn't been in the past. There really hasn't.
They've been one of the few organizations that I could honestly say has been extraordinarily responsive to the community itself who lives here, and incredibly grateful for all of that thought leadership when you work with us.
Thank you.
Thank you. The bicycle path is a question whether or not the bicycle path will be closed. And if so, that's a conversation that we should ensure that the Battery Park City Authority knows, because that will push people off onto the Esplanade.
I do have to permit through Battery Park City,
Yeah.
and I work with Nydia Reader through that. So all of that is very heavily coordinated, and she is on site with me all day.
That's the only funky thing that I
bring
think
it out.
people have
Bring it
gotten
up.
to the end of the bike path, coming down Hudson River Park Trust, they get to Chambers, and there's a full stop there, and they don't know which way to go and how to go. And that has been, with the continual rise in ridership on bicyclists, that's something that I think that we should take a look at, the impact of that, and make sure that we have a pathway, so if they're going north and south, they have a way to get where they're gonna go.
Come on,
The Greenway.
You can't, they got runners.
Road's next to West Street.
Runners,
Be helpful for them to stay
the
open.
bicyclists aren't allowed on the Esplanade.
So if there is a
because of
stop
the
there,
runners.
Right, and there's no place to go.
advising us
So I
what the
think
detour
maybe
route would be.
making some announcements.
That way we
that
could
they're
try to get it out
closed.
to organizations that could pass it on, but also have it marked
Right.
for riders who do.
Right, but the detour onto the Esplanade is a problem too.
Right, but also
Find a route.
work with, I'm sure BPCA at this point knows where it doesn't work, but we'll try to, we'll try to work
So
with
which,
you to.
this is the bike path
It's the
It's just
Greenway, it
finding-
runs along West Street.
along West Street.
Yeah.
Okay.
So basically, as you're
State.
running, which you'll know, you cross it,
It's just to work with NYPD and BPCA to find a way, so if there's a bicyclist,
Heavy traffic, and they
and
can't go in the street.
well, you're gonna cross the bike path
CB
like you would West Side Highway on Liberty, when you're coming out of the tunnel and going down Liberty, then you go to then you're gonna come back out again when you come out on Basic. So there's 2 blocks on the bike path, and you can't have them in between, because
the
it's
bike
a
path
mess.
is closed from all.
The community board has worked for a while with
It needs to
DOT
close down.
and the Battery Park City Authority to try to dissuade people from using the Battery Park City waterfront, as opposed to, trying to keep them on the greenway,
Well, the
which is a
problem-
better facility and there's fewer pedestrian conflicts.
Well, the problem is that
You can't, the black,
they go into Battery Park City and then they end up getting stopped because the run goes down Liberty Street onto the Esplanade
Right.
and around.
Well-
So the bicyclists, when you're coming southbound, they get stopped at Chambers because they can't go further south for security protocols.
Right.
And then they kind of have nowhere to go because even if they go into the Esplanade, then they're gonna get shuttled back out.
Right.
And the street's closed, so there's no place for them to go there. So it's just about trying to be a little bit more holistic in how we look at this. And it's only one day, so no big deal, but maybe NYPD would say, you know what? We're gonna put the bicyclists into a protected lane on West Street.
Yeah, something like that, because there's a lot of people heading south, maybe they're going to Governor's
that is a
Island.
great idea.
Yeah.
Because they close the traffic both ways?
No,
Or they
just the
just the
southbound lane,
southbound
just the
lane?
southbound.
It's
But there's
pretty
no reason-
crowded. The road itself, I mean, having run it, it's pretty crowded.
The road's crowded.
With people.
You're right, and I actually can't speak to the bike lane, I hadn't really taken a look at it.
One
No,
day
there's no place
everybody's
else.
gonna
I
be
can
speak
walk,
here.
unless then they have to.
Not that
Sure.
message
I
you were
work
saying.
with 14 different
Pedestrians, bicyclists,
agencies
and cars,
from
and
law
convenience one
enforcement,
day for the greater
all
cause.
the way up to counter terrorism, that's a conversation I can have repeatedly, we'll figure it
Just
out.
like sometimes for the 4th of July, they close on certain streets for.
Of course, of course.
Yeah, but
It's not
there's
It's
really
just a
no,
rising thing to look at as we look forward to the future. is to
Right, and we
ensure-
just listened to how important for an hour the bikes are, and
bikes are- yeah,
so
so
I'm happy for you to
people
bring
would
that to my attention.
probably know not to come down there to do it, but again, you're gonna have the one-offs.
No, they aren't.
Something's all over TV too, I mean, really? I don't know, has it ever been an issue? That's not new, the bike issue.
It's a growing concern.
It is a growing concern.
It's just something to look forward to the future.
Yeah.
In an ideal situation when we have less cars, less buses, and more people on bicycles.
Do you need a resolution?
I would love a resolution, and I
Is this
also.
under the auspices of DCA for street fairs technically? For the,
No,
What
no,
is the,
this is a street activity permit office.
alright,
Comes to us through this.
okay.
So to respond, I respond
this
to
is
you,
just
because I'd like
an
to,
inefficient
follow
information.
up and get you a response that this has been addressed, that I've discussed it, and that we either have a detour or we're clear.
You would definitely follow up with me,
Okay.
but I leave the resolution to Betty. How would you
Yes,
want to do
by all
that?
means, to get the sentiment of people in general, it sounds as if favorable and support, as we have in the past. There haven't been concerns except that one, so it's just, say, look into the bikeway, the greenway, bike path, to come to some kind of conclusion so that people don't get confused about what they're supposed to do, how to make way for them.
And if it ends up being closed, then we just need
Yeah.
to start posting signs up by Pier 25 and 6.
And maybe when you've got your news coverage of it, you could just say, bikes are not allowed for this day, from this time, you know what I mean?
It's not their job.
Well, why not though? I mean, it's like people don't come there then, because the neighborhood's gonna quickly figure it out. I don't know, it's not your job, but it's nice to know.
But they're going, already heard they're going to look into it. The resolution being done sooner would be just a matter of asking that they look into it, so that would be consistent with what they're going to do anyway.
Yeah.
Not saying it would stop them. Can I get a motion from the floor if somebody is willing to do that?
Say, you could do a resolution to full support.
Agreed, I second that.
Okay.
Great. Yes, you want to take a vote? Is those in favor?
In favor, yeah.
Okay.
Are there any people who are against? Anybody who is recused? Anybody abstain? It's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I'd be happy to get back to you. I'll make
Thank
sure
you.
I address it fully so everyone's concerns are addressed and we're all comfortable and we remain good guests.
Well, and yes, clarity is good. Thank you.
All right, good job, everybody. Way to go, team.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Good, good. All right, I'll work with you on putting it
Yes,
together.
and I will listen to the tape first. Is there anybody here from Collister Street?
Great.
Given that there are members of the public here, I'm going to reverse the order and have them speak next.
Can I give the background on it?
Sure, that's new from last time?
Yes, if you weren't here from last time, the area where I live, Elizabeth used to live up there, she's familiar with it. It's Collister Street, it's between Beach and Late, so it's Late, Hubert, and Beach. It's an alley, it's a really small street. Recently, in the last few years, there's been, let's say, a little more activity there, rowdiness, some drug use, drinking, things like that on the street. And it's, in some areas, except maybe down by, maybe right at the tip of Beach, the lighting is not very good, so it's very dark. So it's even dangerous when working home at night. It'd be an easy mugging, but I haven't heard that happen yet, but it could be just a matter of time. So basically, just requesting a resolution to ask DOT to look into how they can increase some of the illumination on the street with either the existing light poles where they can add another stem or add another light pole or whatever, up to them, however they do it, whatever's in the street that has electricity. Just this has been, it was started in the Quality of Life Committee, and then it got deferred and canceled, and then we're back here. So it's been a number of months trying to get this done, non-controversial, so that's it. It's just really a safety concern.
Yes, I'm interested in hearing, because again, yeah, my motto is nothing about us without us. So really waiting to hear from people. And do you live on the street?
I do not. My firm manages a building on the street, 7 Gilbert Street.
Oh, nice picture, thank you.
So that's what I'm going to speak to.
Yes, no, please
Great.
speak.
So, oh, great. So looking at this, we're looking, we're on Hubert Street, looking at Late Street. This is kind of mid-block on Collister Street. If we were to turn 180 degrees, we would look, oh, great, thank you.
By the way, real quick, just for 1 second.
It's voice
That building
control.
on the right, that's the building that was denied that had the audacious landmark
Hubert.
playing, yeah, so just for reference.
Great.
So, yeah.
Right, and the commercial space in that building is unoccupied right now, so that's dark at night. The building at the end on the right the building on our left is 7 Hubert Street. The building on the right at the end, at the corner, used to be WeWork. It's now dark at night. And then there's a bar on the left side of the corner. And what happens is the bar patrons spill over onto Collister Street and kind of create a nuisance. There's also been an increase in graffiti on the block, and
Including your facade.
right. And we find that rather unpalatable. But that said,
What's the bar?
Huh?
I don't know. Which bar?
The
Talking about
bar
on
Beach
Greenwich.
in Greenwich.
Right.
Oh,
Tavern? Greenwich Street
Oh, yeah,
Tavern.
yeah.
Right.
But let me ask you a question, because I used to live at 145 Hudson.
Oh, okay.
What has, and we moved last year, what has changed though? I mean, the bar has always been there. I mean, I lived
Bar has
there for a
always been
decade.
there, but, and frankly, I think it's just the commercial space is not being occupied,
Is that
therefore
what it
there's a lot less light on the street.
Okay.
And there, it
There's
just becomes,
opportunity.
it just becomes an area to congregate.
And it's primarily those people from the bar?
No.
But
No.
Okay.
You do get some spillover on the bar, from the bar, but it's not primarily at all.
Who are,
It would be
do we
basically
know?
in favor of a light pole.
I have a video of, and we're dealing with Citibank with this, is the Citibank employees, not the Citibank construction workers, coming around there and smoking marijuana while they're working, by the way. So that's one thing.
What is it, you guys want?
Gentlemen, would
Oh,
you,
no, he's not interrupting.
so plus or minus, would you be in favor of a light pole?
Without a doubt. Right now, what I was gonna say was, right now, that entire 2-block stretch, right, and it's all of Collister Street, is served by 2 lampposts, right? And it's difficult for me to think of another 2-block area in Manhattan that is served by 2 lampposts.
Where's the other one?
One is on the corner of
Oh, all the way down there, okay, got it.
So,
Do people live in those buildings?
So is this your building, you said?
yes, on the left.
Have you considered putting lighting on the side of your building?
We are working on that now.
Okay.
Oh, so you are putting some up.
We are putting some up, but again, we have to balance our lighting with what shines into the residences.
That's what I'm gonna ask.
The residents and so on and
Would
so
that
forth.
be the same with the streetlight though? You would have more control than a streetlight if that's the case.
Believe it or not, politically, within the building, because they're vying interests within the building even, a street light would be more palatable. And frankly, as he mentioned, like there are two arms on this, on that light on the corner. If we can add, another arm to the existing lights, that would help. But
I only bring this up because this board has worked very hard to try to eliminate a street light in the area because the newer street lights have very bright LEDs.
Yes.
The DOT will not adjust the angle of the street lights once they're installed.
Right.
And if that incidence of exposure is such that it's going to make your residents angry, you're going to have a heck of a time getting rid of it. And I'll tell you, this was years, and it finally took like almost an act of God to get one light removed.
So where was the light removed from?
Worth Street, and it was put in. So if you want to just take a look at Worth Street between Hudson and West Broadway on the south side, just take a look at those lights.
Corner, right. Yeah.
Get some eyeballs on them. See if people are okay with that. Just because thinking that's the new standard in terms of angle, in terms of pole height. That's what you would likely be getting.
Right.
So I would just weigh that.
No, that's fine, and I appreciate you mentioning that, Lucian. And it would be a Python style light, I would assume.
Yeah, I mean, it's very difficult. I believe this was part of our strategy to get distinctive lighting there because of the landmark status and the landmark district. We thought that we had a really good, and maybe still we could prevail for some of the other lights on that block.
Yeah.
But it wasn't.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But do you think that outweighs the safety concerns and the drug use and the graffiti? Because a neighbor might not want lights.
It did in that particular instance.
Yeah, no,
But
it's
you
a
know,
rare
quality of
thing.
life. Remember Bruce, he came in constantly. That even when the DDC person came in and said to announce they'd finally gotten permission to, DOT was removing it. I was so disappointed that Bruce didn't
Sounds
happen to
like
be there at that time.
one-off, but I'm sorry.
We've got one
But that is the
gentleman-
size of, but that's the size of the
So
illumination.
I have a question. We have one gentleman here representing one building. Do you also live on that?
I'm president of the condo board at 415 Greenwich, which is immediately maybe 30 feet off of Collister at Hubert Street through to Late. And I would echo your commentary. We've been dealing with an increase of graffiti on the Hubert Street facade.
So wouldn't it be most prudent, based on what we've heard, if you both went and looked at that streetlight so you know what you're getting versus us saying yes and then them coming back going, holy smokes, that's way too bright?
I think, no, from my perspective, and again, I'm not the board president, I'm just, from my perspective, so I will certainly take that back to the board and consult with them. And then what we may do as well is just increase the number of lights that we were going to put on our building.
Because what I would say from our perspective, because we don't want to be in that same situation, is if you looked and both buildings came back and said, we are 100%, and sent us a letter saying, hey, we are this condo board, this affects us, we would like this, we're the management company, even though we're gonna add lights, we are in supportive of having this light, then that's an easier push forward for us as a community board to support the community overall, versus having people come back to us later saying, well, I didn't know, who decided that? My apartment's lit up like a Christmas tree and I can't deal with this, I can't sleep at night.
But I honestly think you're dealing with the wrong factor, weighing different factors here.
Think about all the light pollution complaints we get throughout the district.
Yeah, and we do, and we've
There's a
had
light right in
complaints where
front of
people
my
want to
window.
remove them.
I
So
mean-
again, if boards would sign a letter, especially those who have windows.
Precisely.
By the way, I
They're on
spoke to all the folks at the townhouses there,
Yep.
except for one.
Okay.
And they were all in favor of it, and
Yeah.
they're dealing more with the brunt of the issues, because they're on the ground floor.
Right.
I'm down around the corner,
Yeah.
but they're dealing more with the issues of loudness, drug use, and rowdiness
Right.
than anyone
Yeah,
else.
and it's,
Well, this is what we're not sure. Lucian, swing around.
Yeah.
So.
Swinging.
So, stop.
So
There's
there's
an
one
existing
there,
light
yeah,
there, right?
yeah.
Right.
So another arm could
Does
be
that
added,
bother?
that would go towards,
No,
that,
but
the
I'm
most
not
dark
immediately
area.
adjacent to
Right.
that, but
Right.
that light hasn't worked for months.
Oh, that doesn't work?
Yeah.
well, that's,
So why don't you just get that light to work?
That's the other
That
issue.
light and the light further down on Lake,
Yeah.
its sister light, doesn't
Call
work.
311
I
and
have.
they'll send me the service request number.
Yeah, I mean,
But
that,
really?
I'm gonna give you my card and then I'll
Okay.
get DOT
But
to.
even when it worked, it still wasn't enough light.
It wasn't
so-
enough?
It's very dim.
Yeah.
It's
It's still
very
dim? Okay.
Yeah.
Right, but
they
let's
could
get it
replace
working, because DOT can't assess either until that's working.
So the request
But-
is for DOT to assess what's feasible there. I don't know if they can put another light pole or not, we don't know that. But
Exactly, all I'm saying is let's get it operational, what
And
exists.
frankly, we weren't necessarily, thank you, Lucian. We weren't necessarily thinking of another light pole, but we were thinking of another arm.
that was my initial thought as
On
well.
the Hubert Street, light
That would
pole.
help a lot.
But, you know, that said, to your suggestion, let me take it back to speak with them. When I say them, I mean the board of Hubert Street.
Yeah, and
And,
we will get to you all in a second. No, that'd be very appreciated if we
Yeah.
got some of these complaints in writing,
Right.
so we knew who was speaking for who, because again, that is always a problem when you have limited people, to show that it's not limited people. Two, if you can see what you're getting into, so you don't regret what you asked for after you asked for it.
Buyer beware.
And two, yes, let's get it functional. Why? Because DOT won't even do the assessment if we ask for it until they can really see what it looks like when things are fixed.
If you
So Lucy
spin
can help
around,
with
is there an equivalent light pole on the other side?
No.
That's
No,
7
there is
feet?
not.
No,
Yeah.
nothing
And
there.
you're always punished
The
that
next,
building.
yeah, the
Yeah.
next light on that block is down at the end.
It's-
Right, take the far end.
The one at the end has a double.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Actually, go down to beach, the end.
Yeah, no,
down
it
to
is
beach.
double down at the far end
So,
of that.
Yes,
no,
yes.
go
Yes.
right, go down.
I
No,
noticed,
right.
You don't want to go down this way?
Yeah.
Oh, towards
Yeah,
beach, I
down
see.
toward
Yeah.
beach, yep.
Yeah, so you see down, keep going, so, yeah,
No,
right,
no,
now turn around,
on your left,
turn around,
turn around.
up.
There you
See,
go.
now that
That has a
you see,
two-arm.
so this makes a big difference. I mean, there's more light anyway from the other buildings here, but if this wasn't here, then everything here would mostly be dark, but this really helps a lot,
Yes,
but
it
just up to here,
Right.
you know,
So
right,
where's
am I
the
right?
bar
Up
that's
till about mid-block.
Yeah,
Up till
so,
about mid-block. Yeah.
So, so adding one of these to there
Could
might help a lot, I mean, that's a start.
Yeah.
and it will help, it has to help as a deterrent
Yeah.
to the crowds that are congregating, and I mean, walking in the
Yeah.
morning, we.
So-
Okay,
So
wait,
you're
wait,
hearing.
time out, everybody, time out. We'll get back to the chair.
Yes, Mitch, your hand's been up the longest, and then Justine.
No, that's okay.
And then Brittany.
Just for a question for Lucian of something and then a suggestion on a win-win. You said that, you know, in passing DOT, they're not gonna even address the changing the angle of the light. Because
No.
to me, that could be a win-win because like what the DOT bicycle guy said, like when we were talking about different streets, he says, you know, this is not a one-size-fits-all situation. And so it's the same thing here. If it would be a win for some of the residents to have the light there, and a win for some of the other residents to have it angled down the way they do like at some concerts with the amplifiers, you know. the
Right,
speakers
yeah.
angled. And in this specific situation, it would be a win-win where everybody on every side would like it. I think that would be something that should be proposed after they do an assessment, because there's always a first time for something.
And those are the new light, that's the new ones right there, right? Lucian?
Yeah, except sometimes they don't put the diffuser in the light, which is, and that's
So,
the.
Lucian, what do you think of that?
I think it would be great. I think it would be perfect.
No,
But
I'm trying.
I can't tell you how much I begged DOT just to get someone to bend it just a little bit. I would have taken them to a steak dinner. You know, it
Maybe
was.
with the help of the president of the condo and this other gentleman and the
I'm,
residents?
I'm telling you,
Can't hurt,
it took.
Lucian.
You can't imagine the amount of pressure that we put on DOT.
I'm sure.
It is, when it goes in,
Right.
there is zero desire to adjust.
That's a zero desire, but I'm just saying that could be, then if it works, that could be a template for the rest of the city.
I wouldn't
Thank you.
predicate a plan on it. is what
Right,
I'm
we
saying.
want to forewarn them
What?
about what's probably going to happen.
Well, would you be against Betty putting it in any resolution that we do to even put in that suggestion? Would anybody be against that?
No, but if
No,
I
but we're
may,
not,
if
yes, just
I may,
Sure.
what I'd like to do is hear from more people in your buildings though. Because look, like, and over here, these, on the other side,
This side here?
no, the
No
whole
one
other
lives
side
in
of the street, don't worry about it. The
that's
light that, it
Oh, that's
looks like where it would be, it's looking, it's right outside someone's window. Just make sure that people are agree, I could care less,
No,
I
no, no.
appreciate the safety
So,
concern.
too much.
you could just go
Carl,
back
this
to
is
the
too much for
very
light, this
angle.
is unbelievable.
Go back to
But
Hubert
even with
Street?
me, though, I want to hear what people have to say about it who live there.
This is like,
No, but if
well, like
you-
we look,
you
you
got
know.
a window.
And so what we're talking
Yeah,
about.
you're
what
talking
we're
about putting a
is-
light on that
is
light
this-
right there?
Is this lamp
Yeah,
post.
the double like the other one.
And a 90-degree lamp coming toward us.
That would help a lot there, not not the
So-
hundred
So
percent,
what
but it
about,
helps.
well, okay, right.
Thank you, Lucian.
Well,
So,
but-
so that,
but let me
that
ask
will
my
largely,
question.
that will
I wanna make
largely
clear what we're
impact-
doing though. What we're doing is asking DOT to evaluate by their standards for
Correct.
allowing lighting. So when you ask, we asking for this light or that light? No.
We're not asking for any particular
No.
light.
Right.
No,
Okay.
We're
no,
asking
asking to
for assessment.
evaluate how to
But
But
make
what's
I
it
guess-
appropriate
safe.
and in their guidelines.
Before I guess this is my comment would be, and I think it's what you're saying, Betty, before we do anything, I would like to hear from more people on, I mean, whether they show up, or they write a letter, or you can, you know, have them sign a petition,
Yeah.
something to let us know that we're not advocating for something that
No
two
doubt.
people want and 50 don't.
And
Is
in
that
all
fair?
honesty, I'm kind of pinch hitting
And we
tonight.
ask them to talk to the board.
Because, like you, the board president of 7 Hubert was
Yeah.
going to be here, but
Yeah.
but Sam couldn't make it,
No,
so.
no, and
Let's-
it's
He asked
totally.
me to pinch hit.
But that's why in written or email,
Yeah.
if you have Lucian's contact,
But
either's fine.
just remember, board members, committee members, I hear what you're saying, and I think you're overly concerned about it, that's just my opinion, but you heard what we say that live right there.
Mhm.
So weighing the safety concerns and someone's worried about illumination, to me, the safety concerns outweigh that. So,
Well, let's let
Well,
them
the
follow through with
Yeah,
their.
right, and then the other thing is, we're, as I say, 7 Hubert is going to be installing lighting on that street. We want to see how that lighting
Yeah.
pans out.
I say so, yeah, why don't,
But we, because this was on the agenda tonight, we just wanted to give our voice that at this point, we feel that there is not sufficient light on the street, and we're taking steps to correct that. The steps we take may be sufficient to address that. It's likely they won't be, but if they are, we'll certainly communicate that. But then, combined with that, Lucian, you made a very good offer. The two lights which haven't been working they've been working sporadically, shall we say, since they went to the LED.
Yeah.
If we can get that finally
Let's get those
correct-
fixed.
let's get the repair done. If you could also tell Lucian what the time frame is for when your construction job of your additional lighting is, so we have an
And it's
idea of what
within
that
the
is.
next 60 days.
Oh, okay, then we know that.
So you're doing lighting on the facade along Hollister? Or just
Along
one
along Hollister.
intermittently?
Yeah, and frankly, I think it's gonna be 3 to 4 lights. I think it's gonna be 3 to 4 lights, and they're not gonna be sodium vapor. We're gonna try to do LED, but we're gonna try to do like
That's great.
3,000 Kelvin LED.
That's
you know.
great.
Okay, so, yeah, and with you getting the repair from 311 request, then we can get a better baseline,
And then
get that
that'd be
going,
great,
would be
yeah.
great. Brittany, you had your hand up?
Yeah, two quick questions. Do we have any pictures of the street at night, or just the day view?
You know,
Typical-
unfortunately, we don't. We do have cameras.
Okay.
I mean, I have some, but.
Yeah, I just wanted,
that would
we
help.
haven't
I
seen
mean-
Actually,
it.
It's just too dark.
Yeah,
I don't think
you
there's a
can't
night
see
mode on
anything.
there.
Yeah, I wanna know like how much.
Very easy, Joe.
All you can see is like the first half of that, of the by Beach Street,
So that
that's
would
it.
be good to have.
I mean, that's all you can see.
We do actually have night sensitivity vision cameras on the building, but I wasn't able to capture any of that footage.
One of your doormen was telling me that, the two of them were telling me that like, almost every other night they have to go out there and get people to move.
Move people along.
I mean, I do that too, but yeah,
Yeah.
so. yeah.
So we'll get
Question
pictures
two.
next time, or?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, great, Brittany, yeah.
Yes, yeah, you can just forward them on to Lucian, a picture
Will do.
too, that'd be
We'll
fine.
do it.
If you wanna do it by email, if that's easier, by all
A
means.
data file on it and an
It's
email.
fine. Yeah, anything. And your second question?
Oh, yeah, so can you show where the tavern is, because it's not really clear.
Go straight down, make a right,
Is it like a open?
make a right, make a right, go to the corner,
Go to this corner, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
down to the
Down
end,
that street, it's on the other side.
So
and that's it right there, on the end.
Oh, okay, so
Yeah.
it's on like
Yeah.
the next street
It,
over.
it's not just the tavern though.
No, it's not.
It's kids, it's kids
No.
from the skate park
Yeah.
Well, look, it's
who,
dark, that's where
Right.
everybody
you know,
goes.
congregate on Hollister.
It's many different issues.
Lucian, can I?
I will say, because I'm on my bicycle a lot, and that's one of the darker streets that I've seen
Especially if the lights are out.
in Manhattan, and it kind of attracts a certain element.
It does.
That's not
It
one
does.
story,
I want
that's
privacy,
WeWork.
you know?
It is, and that's
What's
what
that
I've
one?
seen when I've been there,
Lucian,
it's getting quite dark
does
at dusk.
the light have to be that tall, like the height of like that lamp? I mean, is it possible, like, you know, the way you have like the one-way signs, like where it's closer to the ground, so it doesn't affect the residents and it lights up the street?
My understanding is that the height of the light pole depends on its placement, so if you put it on a right of way, then they'll put it at a height where the tallest vehicle that they would expect to drive down, it would have to clear that vehicle,
But
so.
that's still lower than the windows of the apartments. If you go back to
I,
where,
I assume that since all the light poles that are on the sidewalks are of this height, my assumption is that
But
it
that would
would,
be
it
another
would mirror
win-win
that.
situation.
Actually, it doesn't matter, because nearly every
like that no
building
parking
there,
sign right there.
every residence there's more ground floor residents than not.
Okay,
Yeah,
Mark, I
so-
thought it was commercial on the first floor, sorry.
Some of it is, this
The
one on
left
the
is
left,
commercial.
but everything else on the
The-
right is
on the
all
right is-
residential.
The other thing that I wanna,
Residential.
I'd like to have everyone keep in mind is that, the light pole, it is a very narrow right of way and, correspondingly narrow sidewalk. And so the right side of this is technically impassable. from
It
a-
is impassable,
Technically,
trust me.
It
It's
is-
not technical, I can't
It
do it.
is impassable if someone needs more than like the most narrowest
Yeah,
strip.
both sides, because the fire hydrant's on the other side
Yeah,
too.
so this
Yeah,
this
you'd be in the
was
street
kind of
on
a
top
poor
of it.
choice by DOT to have one on either
Yeah.
side. So this would force people into the roadway. I would,
It might be that what's on the ground is the only place they could put it.
it's
Maybe,
possible, but
maybe.
effectively you know, a lot of these decisions have
Yeah.
further narrowed a narrow roadway.
Yeah, and so that went into our thinking, and that's why the building was thinking of another arm on the existing.
Yeah,
light
that
pole.
would be, but
As
they,
a
be
possible
careful they don't
solution.
come along and say, we're gonna take it down because it's not handicap accessible.
Well, I was saying, no, all of that
Then
we
they gotta go with
factored in,
something
and that's
else.
why DOT, I'll tell you, has asked to not give them solutions, their engineers, give them problems, and time that is most appropriate to see it, so when they send somebody out,
Right.
So they wanna come
when
at
would be
night.
the best time to see what you're complaining about?
It would have to be at
Doesn't matter,
night.
I say which,
It would have to
or
be at
dusk.
night.
And the next part is the kind of the first precinct part of it.
Okay.
They're not far.
No, they aren't.
They're not far.
That's what they're gonna
So
do.
if you have
Can't do it.
the super go back to building footage and give me a profile of when you have
Yep.
had vandalism,
Good.
that's something I would be more than happy to pass along to the first precinct to,
Great.
so to keep that in mind. So
Ideal.
we can send somebody around.
Tommy Moran is the liaison
Yeah.
there.
Yes, yeah, I know.
And have you mentioned to neighborhood coordination officers as well?
Yeah.
I can put them in contact with you.
Sorry,
The neighborhood coordination officers?
that's Tommy Moran, yeah.
No,
Well,
he's,
it's a different division, but I can bring you up to speed on all that, yeah.
Okay.
because they're the ones really in charge, and they'll start to ask you about the times that are best, and they send people out, they just look at it. So they're your best friends.
Okay.
So when are we gonna agenda this non-controversial item again?
Maybe, he said 60 days to do his construction, maybe I say 3 months.
It'd be nice
Yes,
if the
and we hope
lights were
they'll
fixed.
repair that.
We have
light
3
too.
more months of dealing with the,
Yeah,
with
that's a
this.
good point.
But we're gonna get those other lights up and
And that'll be
going.
another 6 months
I think-
between now and then.
Frankly, I think that'll be helpful.
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah, I agree.
Because right now, it's like looking down into a dark.
Are you adding cameras? You couldn't catch the vandals on your other cameras?
Yeah, you have a camera there.
Cameras capture requirement.
We actually have more cameras, we recently installed some cameras. So there's the one you see.
Isn't there one there though? Because
Yeah.
the
There's
vandalism
currently-
was like
pushed
right around
back.
there, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
No,
it's been more than
we
one.
do have it, I just couldn't get that footage tonight.
Just more of a quick observation. I'm
Sure.
sure it sucks that you guys are going through this, it really does. It's not a unique problem in this community district. We have it in the financial district, particularly on Dutch Street, Gold Street.
I'm
So
familiar with it on
I'm
Gold.
interested to see how this all works out. And I'm
Yeah.
president of the board at 80 John Street. We have this on our Gold Street side all the time. People just graffiti the hell out of the side of the building. Thankfully, we have the Downtown Alliance who are willing to come and clean it up. But it does seem like there's been sort of an increase in a lot of the sort of shady activity Mark was describing. So I'm interested to see how this all works out and what precedent we might be setting for the rest of the community district.
I almost think it's kind of areas of opportunity, you know?
Yeah,
It's
no,
just
it is.
construction workers.
Well, that's another
In our
story.
case, it's mostly scaffolding related, but.
Okay, yeah.
I
Still,
agree, but
narrow
also,
send the
like
video
your area,
as well.
I'd be interested in getting some of DOT looking at the narrow area and where they're going, because again, with being passable, and that means the strollers as well.
Sure.
Oh, yeah.
the lights are not real flexible. What are they going to do to solve the issue?
They probably
And that's
should have put the light on Hubert Street, where it's wider sidewalk, but.
Let's want to hear what DOT will do.
Okay, so it
Yes.
sounds like we have a plan. In a couple months, we're gonna return back. In the meantime, I'm gonna try to get something to, for the first precinct. We'll get DOT
Do you
to,
guys have a relationship with anybody on the board at 80 Collister? Because that's the,
And what building?
not to my, not off the top of my head.
that would be, I don't know why they're not.
Are we talking about this building here?
No,
red
I
one.
know
No,
all
the other
about
side.
that building, unfortunately. On the other side, the flip side, so
I know somebody who lives
one
there.
building is 10 Collister, and then across is 80 Collister. I mean, they're in equally bad situation. They have a dearth of lighting for their main entrances.
Yep.
Get
Is that the
some-
Yeah,
red
flip
brick
around,
building?
you'll
Or
see.
top
You'll
the-
see.
I mean, I know people who live there. I can ask.
I can reach out to the developer.
Over there on the
Okay,
left.
I don't-
They also own a
This
unit
one here?
in my building.
Okay.
You're down on the left, the other side of the street.
So that
Which
means
one?
the
You talking about
next
the one on the
street is
right?
also just bad, I
Both,
guess.
both.
The
I
American
would think
Express
both of
building,
those
yeah.
owners would want
Yeah.
to opine.
Yeah, I posted notice and gave to the doorman,
Elizabeth,
who, to both sides.
Well, that's
So-
good. Yeah, see.
Pretty
I have a
close
friend
to the
who
whole
lives
street.
in the American Express building
Yeah,
right
One
there.
thing that-
Yeah, it's the only reason I
in
know
touch
about
with
tonight.
the
is
bear,
meeting.
somebody
Appreciate it.
interested
Okay.
party for college.
Okay.
My co-op building, one of the things that we were told to do is have cameras on either side of the property, but facing towards the other end of the property. That way we always get someone's face as they cross.
Yes.
But in terms of, you all are essentially policing the dark alleyway, which you're rectifying to some degree with your plan.
Right.
But I would also just try to say, think if there's a way to kind of capture people as they kind of enter the alleyway.
So we have kind of an advantage because our building does take up so much of this side of Collister. So we are, in the plan, we are setting up both unidirectional cameras, and we have one unidirectional
Okay.
directional camera now, but also omnidirectional
Oh, great.
cameras.
Okay.
So it-
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well, yeah, this is fantastic. We'll all be in touch and we'll work to do the intermediate things and then we'll look forward to seeing what the result is in a couple of months.
Terrific, great.
Thank you.
Good. Lucian, thank you very much.
Thank you all, thank you.
Thank you all for your
Transportation
time.
Committee.
Really
Good luck.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Are we gonna
Got
have 11 Hubert on the Quality of Life Committee? Email I sent?
Do you, to speak about the
About
first
the
precinct?
construction
Oh,
stuff.
11 Hubert, that's the
Yeah.
construction.
Yeah, right there.
If I can't get the person to commit to come,
But we have to get on record though then, at some point.
so at this point, I'm not even certain that there is going to be construction.
Mm.
So that could be why the person just disappeared on us.
Mm.
So let's email with Pat.
I wanted to bring up a civic here, that's what.
Yeah.
So let them know.
Yeah, so at Mark's urging, we're trying to get somebody from 11 Hubert, from their construction team to come so we can talk about impacts and mitigating impacts, so.
That would be
But
great,
it's
'cause we're
it's
all very
unclear what's
concerned
going
about
on.
it.
Remember what happened at the WeWork building, so we want to
Yeah,
avoid that type of
exactly.
situation.
Well, and I think Lucia had
Oh, yeah.
reached out to,
Yeah,
because they're starting to do drilling
Right,
on the
right.
property.
Yeah, it's,
Oh, they started doing work in there already?
Well, they're testing.
yeah, it looks like they're taking a look at the subsurface
That's
conditions.
what that was today.
Which means probably they're gonna dig.
Yeah,
Looks
give
like-
me an update, yeah, and we're gonna try and get that on the Quality of Life Committee, so keep an eye out for that. Thanks for coming.
Listen, thank you all for your time.
Thank you.
I'll be in touch. Okay.
That's really exciting. I don't mean to poo-poo the security, but I'm not at all.
That's the major concern. Someone has a problem with lighting, whatever, put down the blinds. I don't want someone to actually, there's so much stuff going on, it's a miracle that no one's gotten hurt yet. You know, because I know some of the guys go out there, I'll go out there and say, please, guys, smoke somewhere else. They'll be, okay, or sorry, but one day it's gonna be one that's gonna be.
All right, everybody.
a lot of night for someone.
We're gonna keep moving.
Yes, and this is more, one, for you to make sure everybody's gotten online with some of the things. Two, for me to find out where people have the most issues with where we're going. Keep in mind with the stated congestion pricing, there are 3 reasons that are commonly stated. So there are some benefits potentially of doing this. And I wanted to make sure to remind people, there is another state law that is on all the legislators' minds. And you have to keep this in your forefront of your thinking. There is the climate leadership. This means statewide, we have to reduce, by law, 85% reduction from 1990 levels. I'll leave the 15% alone because that's carbon offsets. But of that 40% reduction in greenhouse gas from 1990 to 2030, that's in this decade. And not only is it a 40% reduction, but 1990 isn't what 2016 was. Isn't what it is now. Since 2016 was 24.2% higher, and it's gone even more off than 1990. So we have about a 50% reduction on today's carbon levels that has to occur in this decade. Also, to let you know, transportation, and that they made these little figures kind of proportionate in size, 35% of the transportation sector is what is produced by transportation. So there's no pushing it off to the other sectors. They have, in fact, buildings, waste, have done more reductions already. It's transportation that's really been lagging. So there have to be a lot of reduction targeted here and with congestion pricing. So keep that in mind. What we're going to look at too is what needs to be measured for the benefits. Now, if we're going to pay the price, we'll know the benefits too. We'll get back to this. But related to congestion, how we're going to measure the issues of the funding stream to benefit the air pollution, the noise pollution. A lot of it is not being monitored at this time, so we don't have great baselines. And the bigger question too is how many residents would actually pay the toll? I couldn't get CB1. I was able to get our 2 assembly people's districts. So you have the 2 in comparison here. Deborah Glick, who has some in North Battery Park City, and I believe some in Tribeca. Assemblywoman New, who has all of the East, the Seaport and Financial District, South Battery Park City. And as you can see, they're pretty consistent in some ways, because I didn't include the income ones. And you'll see the number of people who actually take vehicles to get to work or not work, we're still talking under 10% for both groups.
What's the purpose of that?
Yeah, I don't, it's
God,
not
I wanna
about
know.
commuting. If we live in New York, if I may speak, sorry. Mayor?
Yes.
I don't want to interrupt you. If you want to finish the presentation, I have
I know.
Because most people who live in Manhattan don't drive to work. We're all walking or taking the subway or taking a cab or whatever, but it's
Well,
not our
as
own
it says,
cars.
yeah.
So that's fine, but I don't know that that's the only criteria that's not what bothers me. Getting back and forth to work isn't what bothers me about congestion pricing and paying for it. Going to my doctor's appointment, coming and leaving the city bothers me. Shopping, the cost of my food, the cost of my deliveries, the cost of whatever, forget the Amazon Prime deliveries, the cost of the food that's going to be coming in, because those people are coming from outside delivering to Whole Foods or delivering to Gristedes or whatever else. All those costs are going to be borne by the people who live in the district.
And the people who work in the
that's
district.
not about commuting, because most people are not commuting to work.
I think this is broken down in a commuting way because I believe this is based on the census's journey to work data set.
Yes, it was.
So
Which is fair,
right. So
but
I
it
think
has no
gives
bearing
you,
on New York.
it gives you an idea of the traffic that you're seeing at rush hour. This is
not
typically
commuting.
emblematic of
Right, but
what you're
but that's
seeing.
not real, like I said, I don't have a car, but those expenses that she said, that will directly affect me
Right.
and us. And so if I'm just going on that graph, I'm in I can't see from here,
Yeah,
but
you're in the
I'm in
light
one of the
blue.
colors that says I don't have a car and I'm not commuting to work, but it still affects me 1,000%.
Plus, if you own a
Yes.
car in the district, why should you have to pay for the congestion pricing?
Yeah.
You live here.
You live here already, you're not
Well,
adding
that's-
the
That's an
traffic.
assumption you may want to make, but the fact is, trying to lay the groundwork of what it is that's out there, what we're going to have to deal with, and what the legislators who have the power are looking at.
Sure.
Not my thoughts.
Yeah, and I think it's probably better if Betty got to the end of the
Yeah, go ahead,
presentation,
that's why-
because
yeah.
I think what she's getting at is that this is a law that's on the books. So what
Yeah.
you as the task force or the working group are looking at is how best to react to the levers that we do have available to us.
Exceptions.
Yeah.
but.
Well, we have to think of that too, because there are a lot more to it than that. Who decides the details? And so this is really looking at the laws. We know who it is we're writing to when we're opining, who is the listening party. Triborough Bridge and Tunnel Authority is actually running the program. They are part of the MTA, that's true, and they will be having the yet-to-be-formed committee, the Traffic Mobility Review Board, which we opined on last month. They are merely making recommendations. The Triborough Bridge and Tunnel Authority makes the actual decisions. The yet-to-be-named members, but like I said, we already opined on. They will talk about the rates, the exemptions, the credits, if any. This is law. That's all that's in here is what's in the law. Specified in the tolling legislation. The tolls for vehicles entering, so it is known that it's south and including 60th Street in Manhattan. So that's a given. That's written down in the law. Passenger vehicles will be tolled once per day. That is in the law. Notice it's just passenger vehicles, not all vehicles. But it is also once a day, no matter how many times they pass in and out of the zone.
Bless you.
The implementation is no sooner than the end of this year. Again, they're assuming it's going to be pretty quickly, if possible, next year, simply because you're going to find out about the finances. There has to be a test, there has to be a period, the law states, at least 30 days, testing period, and 60 days of public comment. Again, they can't do anything until November 15th. That's also in the law, and that's when the Traffic Mobility Board is to report
Cowards.
to the community.
Cowards, I don't care. Record it, they said.
The tolling infrastructure installation is not subject to any city or state environmental or any other laws. So for those who are looking for delays for these kinds of strategies, they made sure that isn't going to happen.
So they just did that arbitrarily, even though that could exist.
It is just the law.
Well,
I mean, we were just talking about the climate stuff, and now they just arbitrarily decided, this is not directed to you, I'm just.
I don't know about arbitrarily, they strategically decided.
They don't want to waste time, yeah.
Disregarding, like, you know, on the other side, we want to do things to, you know, decrease the pollution, I mean.
Call it ironic. But it's also a political strategy that probably doesn't surprise anybody.
It's sleazy, that's what it is.
The whole thing is sleazy. As long as you get enough money, who cares about
The law includes $100 million for the MTA to do the planning, designing, procurement, installation. They have picked the company, I think they're from Tennessee, who is going to be doing the readers. And they are not photos. That's about all I know. They're going to be reading signals from the vehicles.
Oops, excuse me. I'm gonna figure out how to get that off.
I think if you turn on like.
And the tolling financials that
Hey, is
are
this on?
in the law, again, this is not my opinion.
Wait, a CBD tolling fund, what's that mean?
The MTA's already initiated, they've already have $54.5 billion worth of bonds that they've started to sell. So obviously they need revenues because they're starting to have to pay on them. They've already done that.
They didn't waste the money.
And these will have to be paid off from the lockbox, which we'll be talking about later. The tolling revenues need to produce at least $15 billion more than the program expenses for the years 2020 to 2024, or a 5-year window. Keeping in mind, one of those years they're not collecting because it's this year.
So if they don't get that, reach that benchmark.
They will. That's the law. They will. They will up the toll.
They have to design the program.
So you mean if they don't get a certain amount of money, then they're just gonna raise the toll so that they can reach that?
Correct.
Yes, so
And
they
that's
can
what
look
keep in
at
mind.
where they're getting it from.
With the exemption,
Okay,
what's there-
one video,
so keep
please.
in mind with the exemptions and everything else, you have to know the basics, because this is the driving force. It is written into law, they will generate this much money every year.
So to put it another way, think of it like a tax levy. There's a certain amount of money the city expects to pull from property taxes. In the same way, the MTA has bonded against the amount of money they look to generate every year from the congestion charge.
What if
And
we
all that money is already earmarked to the MTA.
That's what's happening.
So they pass a capital plan that's already earmarked that money. So it's, to Betty's point, any exemption you introduce, they're going to make the money back from
Someplace else.
others. So it's a
but-
balancing
but
game.
my answer back is to this, and this is for the record. What they are doing is forcing everybody who lives in Manhattan, who does not have an unlimited source of income, to leave. Because they're looking to collect all this taxes. I'm seeing a mansion tax in there. I'm seeing, you know, what you're saying is exactly correct. If they're not gonna take it from one pocket, they're gonna take it from another pocket, because they've gotta pay back their bills.
Well, so,
What they're
yes.
gonna get left with is a city full of people who don't live here.
Well, or take mass transit.
No, it's
Betty-
too expensive for the rest of the
Well,
stuff.
or take mass transit.
Everybody can't take mass transit if you're carrying lots of equipment, most people can. I take mass transit all the time, but there are times when I physically cannot take it because of work and
And we're
family
gonna take on
requirements.
that problem too. You're not lobbying, I didn't pass the law.
I know.
I know.
I
Not
don't
fighting
enforce
not
the
directed
law.
to you,
Poor
Betty.
Betty.
I'm trying to educate you about the
Solutions.
law,
Yeah.
so as we make these other decisions.
Probably much.
Just teasing.
Okay, yeah,
So
sorry.
keep in mind, this lockbox of money
Yes.
is gonna include the money made from the tolling, but also it's going to have the internet sales tax, it's going to have the mansion tax that was passed.
Okay.
Those three sources are going into the same lockbox.
What was the second thing you said?
Internet sales tax?
The internet sales
Oh,
tax.
internet sales?
So we're gonna
Like
get taxed
Google?
like
Oh,
a.
like-
Evidently, these, most of these already been passed.
Well, we get a
Google
sales
has it.
tax. Are we gonna get an extra internet sales tax?
I believe it's already passed.
It's already
there.
in effect. It
Yeah.
means when you're buying something from out of state where before.
And I think actually it's on your services too, your
Yeah.
monthly bill.
You're getting charged New York State tax, whether you're buying from a.
Oh, I
even
know
if it
that.
co-
Yeah,
right.
that's fine. It's a sales tax. But is it a special internet tax on top of the
Additional.
sales tax?
No, I don't think so.
I
I
will
think
look
it's
into it
that.
some more. I
Okay,
think it's
that's
that.
fine.
I think it's that
fine with
tax
that.
that New York State now gets, even if the
Right.
company doesn't have a physical location in the state.
Okay.
Right, okay, so there are three streams going in to pay off these bonds to improve mass transit.
And just to help you all kind of encapsulate, the internet sales tax is also in a way congestion pricing, because
Yeah,
there's a premium for delivered goods versus going to the store.
correct.
So that is
You know,
dissuading
sometimes-
you ever so slightly from bringing a delivery
You know, it
truck
reminds me
into
of, you know, on your telephone bill or your Con Ed bill, and there's
Yeah.
all those little things of this, the garbage where they mark up, it'd just be something like that, correct?
Correct. For the internet
Yeah,
sales tax,
sure.
it's
It's
just one
not
more
really-
tax.
It's a bundle.
Right though?
This is the
Because
biggest
it's like
scam
we
ever.
pay sales tax on something I would buy at Target that I could walk to.
I'll just-
Or I would pay the
Well,
same
look-
sales
look at
tax
the-
on
look at
something
the
I would
party
get
that's
from
in charge.
Amazon that I
They're
don't
the
have
ones
to
who
walk
did
to,
it.
right?
Oh, maybe sometimes
Yeah, I
it's
still
about
know
one for
if-
another one.
think
Yes,
it's in
right
the
now
vote.
it's the way, if you live in the state, if you lived out of state, it would be different.
Is it changing?
No, it changed already.
Okay, that's fine.
If you've already eaten the cost and
Yeah, well,
haven't
so long
felt
as
it.
I'm not paying more in taxes to buy stuff on the internet than I am locally, it's fine.
Okay, so bottom line is the tolls must generate at least $5 billion from 2020 to 2024, or at least $1 billion a year
There's no pressure.
minimum from the tolls on the road, not all three. The Central Business District tolling lockbox will be created, so again, that's not yet created, but that's in the law, it will be created for these three sources to stream into. The funds will be distributed from the lockbox, 80% going to New York City Transit for our subways and buses, 10% to the Long Island Railroad, and 10% to Metro North. Again, that was one, I'm sure, to make those legislators happy, but also to encourage people to not bring their cars in and give them an option. So a lot of this was written to try to do that, help everybody out.
Everybody I know that doesn't drive
The
in.
exemptions and credits in the law, which ones does it actually state? We don't, no one decides. Any vehicle using the FDR or Route 9A, West Street, including any of the connections to the Hugh L. Carey Tunnel. So everything that's going to trigger and recognize a car is as they turn off of those streets.
So as they turn into Battery Park City, for example, either way, they would have to.
That's what it
I would,
suggests.
one would think, it
by
makes
the-
sense.
Exactly, but this is how it's worded in the law.
Yeah.
I know
So-
sometimes like I said, only from observing it, because I don't drive regularly or hardly at all. When there's traffic jams like crazy, some people will go off the West Side Highway and maybe
They
go.
won't anymore.
Well, I'm sorry?
They won't anymore.
Right, I'm saying,
They
so
won't
you're
anymore,
gonna
yeah.
be creating even
More traffic
worse,
jams, yeah.
worse pollution and worse things, until they get to Riverside Drive or something. I mean, I see
Exactly.
it. I see
Yeah.
it when I-
Nightmare now.
When I used to play ball in the parks along Riverside Drive,
Yeah.
you see it all the time. And like I said, this is not directed to you, Betty.
Well, and that's the question,
love
and
it,
those
making
are some
less
of,
than
when we get
$60,000
into what we want looked at in our district, based on this to show that we are getting the benefits that are supposed to be coming. Those are the issues we're going to be dealing with. Keeping in mind, that isn't the experience in other cities that have tried it. It is a better scenario than you think. Emergency vehicles and vehicles transporting disabled persons. This is from the law. These are exempt.
Which is good.
Well, it is not defined. That's gonna
Oh.
come back to us.
Because-
So I just want you to see the wording
Some
that's in
people
the
are
law.
disabled some of the time, but not all of the time, and
Well,
that's
it's
like.
just, we don't know what this means, period.
The sophistication of how well the state appreciates that fact is left to just future decisions.
That's something for us to opine on.
Yep.
And as I said, it's going to come up, I think, in April or May. I have a lot of things looked at, don't worry, because we don't have to debate them all today.
You know more about this
We're
than I
gonna,
do.
I said, we're gonna take these things on kind of one by one. I want you to see where they are, where there's room for opining, and where we're gonna get some information so we can do that with resolutions along the way. Just want you to see a bigger overview now.
Lucian, can I just ask you one question of something you just said? You were talking about the property taxes and all that stuff when you were describing things. Just somebody, a friend of mine that I work with who lives in the Bronx, and when I mentioned like this is gonna be happening, and he was going like, what about, like, all the taxes that I pay, you know, and I was just wondering what somebody might answer, like, and now I have to pay to go to my city, like, what about all the money that I'm already paying in property taxes? It's not just like the people in the zone, like, where I have to come in and carry this equipment. So what type of answer would you think, would they give to that? I mean,
Well, okay, at the risk of, I would just say
I wanna
that
know what to tell
there's a time cost. I think this is what the larger ideas with the legislation. There's a time cost. And right now, when someone's going from the Bronx to say Lower Manhattan, let's say they take West Street, let's say they take, they take the bridge to Second Avenue and they want to go all the way downtown that way. The amount of people who have chosen to drive into the city as opposed to take transit delay your friend from coming.
he
Wait,
can't take transit.
wait. Let me tell. Hold on. Your friend who's driving
right?
is going. It's going to take far. It's going to be a far faster trip for your friend, with less people competing for on-street
right.
parking.
And that's what the airlines do, because now you have to pay to get better service. It's the same principle, Lucian.
Yeah. So but that's the value proposition
So I forgot your
for
name, but
this.
she said, Justine, that it's gonna be great for the richer people because they're paying for the convenience to have less traffic and it'll be better for them. And the other people that.
Well, let's go to the next item then.
Yeah,
Residents of the
let's
CBD that
Betty,
make less than
you just cut off his
60,000.
answer that I wanted to hear.
But he didn't.
No, I heard you.
No,
that
that I
you're
want you to
saying that
respond.
it's a well.
It's a classes.
I can answer it.
But,
The politicians just waste, we have the highest tax state in the country. And, I mean, you almost like paying 50% in taxes.
But just responding
And
to.
everything else, it all adds up.
So-
And where does all that money go? They need more money to run the freaking
So
trains?
if your
It's
friend,
ridiculous.
Yes,
if your friend makes less than $60,000 a year,
Yes, he does.
then they won't pay the charge.
Oh, so it's, I
It
didn't.
says it right, you
Well,
can't.
but he has to be a resident of
That's
the
what
district.
Betty was about to say.
But he's in the Bronx.
Oh, okay. So if your friend pays for gas, and if your friend's time is worth anything,
Right,
and your friend loves on-street parking,
yes.
then all three of these should be some value. And they may not make up the entire congestion charge, but certainly they won't be.
So if you make under 60,000?
No.
But
That's
he'd
for
have to live,
residents of the
he'd have to
district. That's
live
my
in the
fault.
central business
That's
district.
it.
Forget that one.
And he lives in the Bronx, you said?
Yes.
Yeah, it wouldn't apply to
Yes,
him.
I'm sorry. That's my
Residents
fault.
live in the.
Yeah.
Well, and that's why the issue is going to be, that all these people coming to work in the area, my doormen are gonna be screaming, I can tell you, because a lot of them drive. It's probably gonna change for them after.
They're probably gonna quit.
They might,
I
that's
don't
not the
know.
only way
We'll
that
see.
gets to work,
Yeah,
from where they
We'll see.
live.
you know.
There's other
people
ways of
are
doing it, because
Or we're gonna have to
The
pay
people
more
who don't have
salary for
access.
them
But
to
it's
help
social engineering
compensate the
people's
cost. If
behaviors.
gimmicks,
it's not
yeah.
social engineering,
government.
it's they want to reduce the pollution. They want to reduce
It's
global
about,
warming.
you know,
No,
Wait,
I
hold
wish
on,
that-
guys, we're
That's the
devolving.
excuse.
I'm sorry, I
That's the
wanted to engage a little bit, because
got
you
it.
wanted to engage a little bit about it, but I hope we can make it through this.
You got it.
Yes. Okay. So besides the relief for price, for people who live in the CBD, there is supposed to be cars that cross the 60th Street boundary only for alternate side of the street parking reasons.
Good luck
Supposedly, I was gonna, well, not only enforcement, I wrote down, simply the MTA has said he's gonna figure it out. What does that mean?
Yeah,
That means it's not exactly in the law either.
No.
So
good point. And
I
that
wanted to
should
make
be-
sure you knew kind of where that was coming from. Additional exemptions can be proffered by the Traffic Review Mobility Board that is not yet named. Those are things we can opine on, but
You might be good.
there are limitations.
If you take it off your.
Congestion pricing details. There are things about the toll rates, and if it's gonna be variable, such as weekends are different price than night is different than day. Those things are not decided, those are things we opined on. Hopefully next month, we will hear from, is Charles Komanoff possible?
It's possible.
Because we have someone who at least is one of the ones giving up the numbers on these things to let you get better familiar with 3 different options that are put out there so you can see different kinds of scenarios that could occur.
Who's coming?
The tolling board. It's not committed yet, so
Charles Komanoff, who is essentially the person who did the model for congestion pricing.
he'll be listened to.
Yeah, him and Sam Swartz are essentially the architects of the principles behind New York's Cordon.
Right, so to get someone who can explain what they are and answer questions, I think would be helpful. Whether you agree or don't agree, it'll give you a sense of knowing.
Yeah.
Before you opine, you should understand what the variables are, and do we have a preference?
Yeah, nobody knows more about it than Charles
I was
Komanoff.
gonna say, we want someone who knows what they're talking about.
See that guy with the glasses?
He has glasses and a beard.
That's the the guy who was he's a nasty human being. Why is he coming?
I know
He
that you
threatened a
don't
community board member once.
you don't get along.
Why is he coming here? Well, he should not be invited here.
Wait, who?
Honestly,
He's not, and he's an expert.
I don't care if he's an expert. He threatened the community
Mark, is
board
that
member once.
that short guy with the?
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that Mark told you that there was actually some.
Ask Tammy about it.
Yeah,
Even ask Tammy about it.
Okay, I think you all need to take it, there needs to be a sidebar discussion about this.
But honestly, this person should not be invited before this committee.
Is he a government official?
Oh, he's with
No.
No, but he's advised government officials.
No, I got scared it was.
I didn't see him, but I heard some stories from like different opinion, Mark on one side and other people that might not have the same opinion as Mark, and they both agreed about this one person about certain things.
Just ask Tammy about it.
Well, yeah, let's not get into the, here's a.
We really gotta
Want
consider
someone
this.
who's-
This person should not be coming here before the community board as a presenter.
And your point is well taken. As soon as we find someone who knows more than he does, we'll consider that, but at
It's
this
not the
point, we need
point.
information. But that's the point to me,
No.
that's all I'm saying.
Okay, so
Possible further exemptions, you have to keep in mind, they have to, in law, the board would have to have the traffic study and income to pay the bond debt. So they're gonna keep in mind how much money they have to raise always, but also look at the traffic studies. DOT is getting a big job here to do, to look at for any exemptions or anything else that's going to be done. They wrote a lot in this law. They will have to consider changes to the for-hire vehicles surcharges, which remember it's $2.25 per taxi ride, $2.75 per Uber or Lyft or any of those rides, is what they're talking about here.
So that's another thing that affects the non-car owners.
Yeah.
Like for people that are
Well, you own a car.
pedestrians.
Well,
and-
no, I can give you the punchline
Sure.
to the Komanoff study. If they now make almost 400 million a year
Who's that?
by using the state,
Okay.
by having them pay a per ride fee, they would pay less if they pay the congestion. So do they want to lose money on these, because it would be, once a day?
Because why aren't they gonna do both?
Because then there'll be no affordable transportation at all, if taxis.
I mean, not that I'm saying that, and not that I want them to do both, but I'm gonna tell you, that's how they're gonna get around that. They'll say, oh, we'll just do both.
I wouldn't, like I said, that's gonna be a debate for another day, because this is gonna be done too. But it's gonna down to, then if nobody can afford to take a taxi, you're gonna drive those people out of work and everyone's gonna have no way
Right.
to get a ride. So everything's got to be balanced. Those discussions are gonna come up in a month or two, because these are all issues. Consider the traffic plan. Oh yeah, gonna have to look at the impact on tolling. So there are a lot of requirements for any of these exemptions or changes. some of the information we do not and will not have because it can't be accumulated until after congestion pricing goes into form. There is a lot of reform built in for those who want to look for positives in this law.
I haven't seen one yet.
Which may be good.
Sorry.
Well, they're looking for reorganization of the MTA. I think a lot of people would agree that would be good.
That should happen anyway, though.
By June.
Well, but here it's at
But
least,
eliminated.
what's kind of, yeah, but what's kind of interesting though, if you look at the second item, they're modifying the terms of the MTA board appointments. So that if the people on the traffic congestion pricing will come and go with the elected officials. Keep in mind, the people naming them, like the mayor's gonna name one, when he goes out, so will his nominee, because they tied the
So there'll be no
appointments.
There'll be no
to congestion.
continuity. Yeah, I don't know if
It'll
that's a good
change
thing.
some of this too, so that's just it. I'm telling you, there's a lot of
Yeah,
moving
yeah, I don't know
parts
if
that
that's a
I
good
don't know what
thing.
they all
That's
mean.
like what they were trying to do with the community board, and that would have, the reason why they didn't do it was because even when every couple of years, but the construction projects and everything, to have the experience of people that have been on the board for 10, 20 years, like Mark and Tammy, they know some of the backstories.
Well, this is certainly germane to all of your oversight, specifically as the transportation committee members, that we, in next administration, we may want to impress upon the mayor's appointees to the MTA. We'll need to know, either we have a recommendation for who the mayor should appoint. That's something that we'll know when that appointment is going to be coming.
Right, so this is gonna be an ongoing saga. I want you to know there are these other moving pieces. This is not gonna be resolved on day one and go away. It's
Remember,
ongoing.
we're all volunteers. Jeez, this is like so much more work.
There's a lot of stuff here for a legal
I mean,
challenge.
to have to keep, I don't mean, just like to keep educating the new people and the new people. It's
Also,
like,
look-
how much time?
Well, the MTA is gonna have to undergo an independent forensic audit. It's supposed to be coming out around now. So again, that's also another thing, another moving piece for us to look at. The calls for a major construction review by outside experts. That's positive. In fact, it's also written that the outside experts, if they disagree with a contract, have to put it in writing so that people can read what was said by those who don't agree with the contract. It requires public reporting on the MTA performance metrics. So again, well, some ongoing stuff to look at.
Yeah.
We can't really opine until we see exactly what metrics they're gonna be reporting on. It requires any MTA project over 25 million. This is new, it's gonna go to design build.
What does
They
that
found
mean?
that design build means whoever designs it and builds it. So where before they had a real problem of coordination, one group designed it, another group built it.
Right.
They didn't have to talk to each other, everything was, this is a change that they believe, the
There'll
lawmakers,
be a lot of
that it'll be a
subcontracting
little
going
bit,
on with that.
perhaps, but at least there is some point of contact that's
Okay.
responsible. Whoever puts in the bid will be for both on these big projects. And also it allows them to debar any contractor that goes more than 10% overruns.
What's that mean, debar? Fire or never use again?
I believe take their name off the list, yes.
So never use again. It's okay.
So
that's
again, those are
fine.
potential
Build everything.
positive. So what's next? The appointment to the Traffic Mobility Board, we've already opined on that.
We said we wanna
Yay.
have members, right? That's what we said.
We want to know who they are, we want to have open meetings, we
Right.
want to have the minutes.
We said
And
all
we'd
that.
like to have one person from,
The
potentially
district,
two from the congestion zone, but one from the district,
Yeah.
yes. That's the first one.
yeah.
There have been exemptions already asked by the NYPD and the fire department as well. Their unions have been on TV yelling about that.
Yes,
So-
they can get, not pay for their congestion
And they
pricing.
said
I mean,
even-
the
Placards.
placards, thank
Yes.
you.
Well, keep
More
in mind
placards.
that every police
Yay.
district, trade group, whenever you ask for an exemption, keep in mind how many zillions of other people are online.
Yeah.
As I said, expect people from every one of the legislators. Those in the Bronx, those in the Queens, they all have their favorite group who's gonna be approaching them saying, but give us an exception.
That's
But
why we
certainly
have to
residents that live below 60th Street is a
Not
logical
necessarily.
choice.
Right.
Not necessarily,
Right,
is my
because it's
point.
price differentiation.
Well, from their point of view, but
Yeah.
it's a
No.
lot, it's, I mean.
That's
little-
price differentiation.
That's why we have
We
to
have our
make it a
legislators, they
ghost
have their
town.
legislators.
Let's make it
And
a
so
ghost town
there's
like
just
it
a
used
list
to
here
be.
of the various entry points, and keeping in mind, some are free, some of the bridges, but they're gonna get hit with the full congestion charge. Others that are coming in, such as the Lincoln Holland Midtown, the Battery Tunnel, are paying. The question is, and some of them are asking for, can they get a break on the congestion price, because they've already paid part of.
What,
Keep
for
in
the
mind, the New
tunnels?
Jersey governor has already said, pretty much demanded, there be a break for people coming from New Jersey. Because why should everything be on the back of New Jerseyites when New Jersey Transit was not included like the Long Island Railroad was? Or like Northern Metro
That
was?
makes sense, I mean.
And,
Yeah.
well, and that's just it. What deal are the governors making between themselves?
Right.
We don't know.
Yeah.
So keep in mind, all these things are in play and are gonna have to be looked at. Different classes of drivers. Those who have commercial vehicles are saying it's only personal vehicles that are once a day. You know, why should we be hit every time we come in, multiple times in a day, if we're repair
Right,
people?
is it passen-
Deliveries, right?
is it passenger
Deliveries or repair
vehicle?
people.
And then that'll be passed on to us.
That's correct.
Well,
Or
and that's
put
why
a
I
small
thought,
business out of business.
Yeah.
there are people,
Yeah, sorry,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
there are people that cross the tolling area that are coming from pay that aren't directly entering, such as from the George Washington Bridge, in Mario Como, the Tappan Zee. Those people are complaining, saying, we get double tolled because we get hit out there, but then we're not being looked at to get a break when we go down into the congestion
Right.
zone. Keep in mind, other people are saying, that's great, and Jersey's really screaming, saying, well, then they'll all circle through Jersey to come in through the Lincoln Tunnel or
Right, like they
Holland
do for the
Tunnel.
Verrazano from
They'll
Staten
go
Island,
fee
they do the same
shopping.
thing.
So now we're getting into toll shopping. Again, Charles Komanoff can talk about some of that and some of these things to
Hopefully not.
consider. Because all these variables mathematically are important to understand what the variables are that are out there on the table. We have to be informed, like it or don't like it, we have to be informed if we can really
A lot of
apply.
good stuff here for when that lawsuit's gonna happen.
So keep in mind, what's coming up next month, we're gonna take on tolling first. You know, what are the various options there? What are the issues around that? Then we'll move into some of the exemption areas, because there are a lot of those that we'll be looking at when it goes into April and May.
Everybody was glasses.
So we will handle them in smaller bites, there are a lot of them. So you can start thinking about them and what you want to raise, yes?
Oh, so this is supposed to go into effect when? We don't know what anything is.
It can't be
but
before
when-
the end of the year.
Can't be, well,
By
yeah,
law,
because-
after December 31st,
but we
2020.
won't know what it will be until then.
They can't-
Until like
November
November,
15th.
whatever.
Yeah.
So,
won't know
but they'll
until-
have
So
to
we have till then
implement
to get out.
that
Yes,
in a certain amount of time also,
Yes.
right? Like,
60 days, but the pressure's going to be on
they
for
have 60
January
days to
1st.
implement it?
They say for public for public,
So it's 30 days, oh my God, it's 60 days
for the public,
for the public to know. So let's say they get impaneled in November. Let's say the 1st of November, they're like, okay, the board is now meeting, we're voting, this is exactly what we want with one meeting. Then 60 days will start, and the public has been notified that these will be the exemptions, this will be the hours, there's a variable toll, at midnight it goes down, at 6 a.m. it comes back up, whatever they decide, right? And then January 1st, the toll would commence, but 30 days before the toll commences,
Right.
there has to be
they do a trial.
a
to
trial
prevent it.
period. So they'll
Make sure
they'll
the
probably
system
start
works.
installing everything
This
before,
soon,
Right.
like they'll
Like,
start.
they
You'll
would have
probably
to do
see
it
that
They have
happening
to.
at
The
60th,
infrastructure.
Yeah, they
60th Street
cannot do
and
it.
all around Lower Manhattan, where people come off of West Side Highway or on the East Side Highway or the Brooklyn Bridge. So like Center Street, we'll see some cameras go in right where they come off the bridge. Those will be ready to go, and they'll flip them on to start testing it 30 days out.
Lucian, are you saying like the 6 a.m. and 12 midnight, are you just saying like hypothetically?
I'm hypothetically, I'm
Okay.
just saying, but they could do variable tolling. They could
Yeah,
say,
they can. They have
they
the
could say commercial vehicles only pay $1 if they come in after 8 p.m. to do stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
Or
because-
deliveries,
And there have been
delivery vehicles
discussions
only pay
about
$1.
Especially people that work at night, that live in certain areas, like that are, like say in the arts, that carry lots of equipment to, and.
It's right, that's right. I would say it would be I would find it very unlikely that they didn't do some sort of variable tolling, just given just how smart it would be to
Okay.
encourage
I
people
just got
to
scared when you said midnight.
use roads when
Yeah.
there was more capacity. I think that there's an opportunity to nudge.
Well, and that's how we're gonna hear about that next
Sure,
month.
sure.
But it's very much, it's not only that, it's do they bill it once or twice? As soon as you cross that line, do they charge you the full fee? Or is it half when you go in, half when you go out? Why, if it's variable, you might enter at a peak time and leave at a
Right.
low time, or vice versa.
Right.
That is not that's left for this review board to do as well, something we can opine on, something that we'll be listening to in March, which is why we need someone who really knows the mathematics and has run them.
Wait,
can
I
tell
have
us
a
when the
question about
finances-
that. I don't care about what their budget is. I care about what my budget is.
Yes.
But
And
it's the
so I
law,
understand.
Christine.
It's the
Sorry, no, I understand that it's the law, that's their problem to figure it out. I say that we should ask for what we want that's reasonable. Well, I didn't, but I'm not looking to make the deal for them and saying, oh, well, we're gonna give the police are gonna get this much, so maybe we shouldn't ask for so much. No, my position's going to be, we should ask for as much of an exemption as we possibly can. I get that it's happening, I get that. I'm not, much as I'd love to have argued against it, that's ship has
That's
sailed.
all.
But what I wanna say is, I don't want someone who's gonna come in here and tell me all the different ways, I don't know this guy, I don't care about
Oh, this
that.
is
But
not-
I
this is a
wanna know
charge.
about how,
Lucky.
what we have to give up, and how much deeper I should be digging in my pocket to make it a better deal, so that somebody else, it's not my
Yeah,
job, let
no.
them fight for themselves.
No,
At
keep
this
in mind-
point, if we're making a resolution,
Yeah, Justine,
it's
no,
not nice, I know.
the tolling numbers have nothing to do with anybody's exemptions or anybody's credits. It's a separate issue, because it's for everybody. You would then be exempt from it, or have a credit from it, or not. But they're separate. This is just determining the price and how it's billed out.
Yeah,
Why? Because we've got to get to at least $1 billion.
a year.
Then we kind of know what's going on.
Why do we have to get to $1 billion?
Well,
Well,
we as in
we-
collectively, the social
all of-
compact that makes up the state of
That's
New
the
York,
law.
that's what she means. But just to come back around, there's lots of times where we talk about things and we say, well, this isn't a zero-sum game. But in this case, this is a zero-sum game. So, so if we have a significant carve-out, there will have to be a rebalancing onto another group. So, this is the part where we talk about, is there a sensitive group that we're worried about? Mitch brought up small business owners. If you want to carve out for small business owners, then everybody else may have to pay slightly more. If you want to have a carve out for just residents of Lower Manhattan, everyone may have to pay slightly more. And it's not to say that we're going to lump something on other people, but I'm just saying this, we have to know that everything will be rebalanced upon others.
That's their problem.
And that could be their problem. There's no problem with saying that.
Right.
But you just have to know that.
balancing that you're talking about, I'm saying should be on the shoulders of the traffic mobility board.
But we're.
It
Our
is.
job should be to advocate, I mean, again, and not just my position, small business owners are in CB1. There are other people besides just me, I'm CB1, I get that. But I would say that I would think this committee should be pushing for whatever is best for all the constituents in CB1. That's all we can speak to.
And we should coordinate with the other CBs, because
And
they
then,
have very much, when
They
I was
have a
at, when I was
very-
at those hearings, talking to residents, which kind of surprised me, other than the advocacy groups that don't give a damn about anyone, most of the residents were not in favor of this. So I suspect coordinating, and I know with 2 and 3,
Lucian, I'm sorry.
we would probably be at least offer residents below 60th Street exemption. I think a unified resolution on that could
Well,
be
I
had.
think we should, yeah.
The reason why I bring it up that way is that I feel that when you make an policy argument, if you've thought about the fuller scope of the policy, you're more likely of getting some thought, because you're essentially completing the equation for them. So if you're saying that I looked at this and I felt that there's a sensitive group A, and if you were to lower the burden on sensitive group A, then maybe there's a group C that's less sensitive that you can raise it on. You help create that calculus for them, and I think that's more likely to get something than just say, because everybody's going to line up and they're going to say, I'm sensitive group A.
Lucian, you're gonna be putting, this is almost like with the immigration stuff, where the cruel stuff that's happening now, you're pitting one group against another.
That's what this is.
And that it's terrible, it's terrible.
It's what it is, though.
I know, okay, I wanted to suggest you and Betty one other thing, because only, like I said, I don't know this person personally, but from diversion people, from Mark to Tammy to a few other people, that I realized that person that we were talking about that's coming in, that Sam Schwartz, he's been an expert. I don't agree with everything he says, but he has a nice column in the paper, but he's an expert. Just because somebody knows a lot, that particular person has a 1,000% agenda. If there's a way to get an expert to come in that doesn't have a total agenda, I think that it's a more fair thing, because that person has an agenda, and you know, it's, forget about what side. I don't want an agenda on the extreme left and an agenda on the extreme right, just like somebody with information like what Betty's giving us information now. I think there could be a dangerous situation if this person says the wrong thing.
I don't need to be that concerned, and I will give you some of the articles to see. It's simply numbers.
No, I'm talking about.
If you do this, then this is the money
I'm
you
talking about
predict.
not having this one person because of things that I've heard, where things that he said to Diane Lapson when she was dealing with like catastrophes in her family or her own disabilities, that I couldn't believe if that was, I mean.
He had her in tears, right in her face. This man is dangerous.
Somebody without an agenda, can you at least acknowledge, like I said, some of the other people here don't know
It
this.
should not be, there are plenty of people
He
that
has
could.
an agenda too. The point is,
I don't have
deal
an,
with him all the
I want to
time.
hear
Okay, so
about
I
it.
don't want Mark to speak either.
But I don't
want
want to hear, this particular person is dangerous. He should not be an
not
invited
dangerous.
guest here. You don't know, Betty, you haven't been on the board
Wait,
that
would
long.
it make everyone feel better if I had a decast?
I've seen what he's done in other meetings, how he gets militant in people's face. I've seen it.
Tell her what they did to Diane Lapson.
I've seen
Well,
it.
then we'll control.
More than once, and I'm not the only one who hasn't
Then we
who
will
is in
ask
this.
him to
He
leave
should
if
not
he
be here as a
You're
presenter.
bullying me right now when you're here.
I'm not bullying you at all. I'm telling you what I know about this guy, and others know.
I'm just asking, somebody told me of things that he said to Diane Lapson,
have
who's
no-
partially disabled, and that he was cruel to her about her disability, which would have got him.
Let me tell you, first of all, he's always been very nice to me. Second of all, last time I saw him,
That doesn't.
well, I'm disabled. If you're saying that he's out and out against disabled.
No, I didn't say it better time.
Wait.
But the point was, he
That's BS,
had
Betty.
a friend who was disabled that he brought over.
I didn't say he's about any disabled. I said to Diane Lapson, who was having disabilities, and he was cruel to her. That doesn't mean he's against every disabled. I'm saying he was cruel to her. That's my exact
Well, then let's
words.
give him a chance.
So okay,
There's
so
been too
everyone,
many incidents to give him a chance.
everyone. So these are two things I can do. One is we have DCAS police. They're sitting right down the hall. I can invite them to sit right in the doorway. So at the first second that someone feels, well, if someone feels or feel like he's dangerous to some degree, huh?
Betty, did you invite him?
You know what?
No, wait, I'm sorry.
Betty, did you
Well,
invite
I've
him?
asked, no, he's not invited yet. This
No,
one
no
I've
one's
asked.
invited. No one's invited,
I said
okay?
It's not committed.
But Betty's discussing this committee. If we feel like there's a danger, I can have DCAS police come. We've called DCAS police before when there's been members who had to be removed. I can have them sit next to the door. That's no problem. If it's an issue of decorum, then I can let him know that there's been times in the past when he has violated our norms of
Aren't there 20
decorum.
other people that you can call?
And no,
No, there aren't.
Are there 2 other people you can call?
there.
Let him finish.
So
Sorry, Lucia.
if he violate, I can make him aware before that multiple members have been present when he's violated norms of decorum, and that if those norms of decorum are violated, we'll ask him to leave the meeting. I do think, given my professional opinion, remember everyone, I went to urban planning school. I've studied congestion pricing for years. I've known him to be the person who essentially built the model of how congestion pricing works in the state of New York, and essentially the United States. His model was funded by major foundations. It's a huge amount of work, and it is from a academic level well recognized. That said, if somebody is an asshole, they're an asshole, and I get that. And so we can try to control for that. But I think that it's worthwhile because we're wrestling with some real questions about balance here. He can bring the model in, and we can run the numbers and actually see what the effects are. If that is a bridge too far, then that's how the committee feels. I'll respect that, but you're not going to get that with anyone else because he's literally the person with the model.
You can't even bring an opinion up to him without him getting militant on you.
Well, we
He did
know
it to
that,
me
but
twice
wait,
when he was sitting in the audience. He wasn't even doing it. So
He's
I don't say
not
he's not a passionate.
he's not the wilting flower.
He's
That's-
nuts.
I have a question.
If he's here, I will not be here.
What model, he created the model that this is based on, or a different model?
He built an Excel, based on Excel, but like a 17-page, like essentially like mega machine of a model where you can control for all factors.
Okay, so
It is
I
just-
understand
In
that.
fact, for next month, before he comes, the RPA project report will be one that I'll give to people, they don't have to read it, but it is a group that has systematically gone through congestion pricing with their recommendations. He's the one who is the authority who put together the modeling
has
on
the
the
biggest
3 different
agenda.
options. It's not an agenda, he
He's
was
a-
asked to produce.
Don't disagree with him.
His work is in like calculating numbers,
I'm
like
sure
finance, like, so his.
I'm sure he's brilliant, Lucian.
What I'm saying is, if you want to have an honest discussion about what you can reduce and still make that 5 billion
Over 5 years.
I think I need to
over
be on
5
the
years,
committee, 'cause I
then
don't care
this
about
is the
the
only. If not, then you're gonna.
I know, I mean,
That's their problem.
well, yeah, I mean, no, that's okay. I
Putting it
don't
on
need
our
to be on the,
shoulders.
my answer is not about this guy or not this guy. At the end of the day, that's not the conversation that I wanna have. I wanna
Yeah.
ask for what is best for the
Exactly.
people who are in community
That's what I
Ward
thought we
one.
were supposed to
But that's
do.
only one little piece of
But
it.
I'd like to
That's
know
only
what's
one little
realistic.
It's not the little pieces, the
Yeah,
piece.
that's fair. I
It's
do
the-
wanna
But
know
it
what's
is only one
realistic
item,
too.
when you
That's
look at
fair.
all these things there is,
And I'm
that's
not
why I
being
thought-
like, I'm not gonna, take my toys and go home. I don't mean it that way. I mean like I'm not gonna add value.
But remember, there's variable tolling. There's all sorts of factors. It's not just a clear exemption, right? If we really drill down to what is the factor that I feel like is going to make a significant impact on people who share the same, constrictions as me, then let's explore those in the model, and we may find that there's ways to ameliorate those concerns in a way that is not as blunt force as just saying exempt me.
For instance, if you look at the model, and you'll see it in the RP report, so you only have numbers to actually look at. If there's variable and weekends and evenings are lower, because congestion is really the daytime commuting hours, you will see the fee goes way down for those hours. So even those who don't get exempt would be paying less. You have to kind of see
I don't go to the doctor
numbers.
in the middle of the night. I go to the doctor in the middle of the day.
Well, as far as the doctor goes,
I mean, in general, there's not,
Okay, I think Patrick has his hand up
I
for a
know,
while.
yeah.
yes,
Is
no,
it?
by all
It was a
means.
long time ago, I didn't even remember that.
yeah.
He was asking permission to go to the bathroom.
Yeah, probably.
Sorry, yeah, I'm not gonna,
I was trying to.
I'm not gonna, because I'm not gonna add value. I won't.
Okay, well, you
Community
can
board, not a,
debate that. Thank you. What I will do is send you some readings for next month, because it will be about tolling. For those who want background, it's a place where you can go to get some information, which simply talks about the different kinds of tolling, variable versus different time of day versus one-way, two-way.
Yeah, I mean, I guess
So you
what
can
I'm
look
saying.
at it in advance.
What I just wanna say is I don't wanna fight for the sake of fighting, and I don't wanna be a jerk. So, but your points are well taken. I guess I'm just really,
fight for your convictions.
all right, I'm gonna try to behave. You might need the cop here for me.
That's why I keep them close.
So, yeah,
Does
I
that have
apologize.
like a master's
Is the meeting, I'm sorry, is the meeting adjourned?
Yes, no, means adjourned.
Okay.